BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
But there were some winnable ball games in the Angels series as well. So they've been competitive up until the Boston series, and I think that's encouraging. The offense still looks great, but here we are, like we do. It's a tradition. We have concerns about the starting pitching.
That was Katie Wu on with us earlier this week alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Cardinals back in action tonight after an off day, a much-needed off day according to the Cardinals, Alex. Yeah. They had a really tough road trip.
Good thing it's warmer here.
A lot of travel going on. Some double headers, extra inning games. They went 1-5. It did not go particularly well for the Cardinals while they were on that road trip. They started 4-2. They are now 5-7. They need to get back on the winning side of things, and all that is in front of them is a 3-game set this weekend at home against the Philadelphia Phillies with Aaron Nola,
right,
Christopher Sanchez,
yeah, easy,
and Zach Wheeler on the mound for the Phillies this week.
We beat Paul Skeens. Wheeler who?
That's right. We're not afraid of anybody.
Yeah, we just couldn't beat the dude who had like a 9 ERA that nobody's ever heard of.
The thing that scares us the most is who's coming out of our bullpen.
This is a 13 games and 13 days stretch. The Cardinals have been pointing toward this stretch ever since spring training began, where they're like, we've probably got to go to a 6-man rotation during that. We're kind of setting our roster up to find out what we have during that 13-game stretch. And, Alex, I don't mean to be hyperbolic here, I promise you, because I don't think this stretch will determine if the Cardinals make the playoffs or not. I don't think it's that kind of a stretch. What I do think it is, though, is a stretch that could determine just how invested fans get into this team. Because we have seen this in recent seasons. In 2023, Cardinals start the year 5-7, which is, checks notes, exactly what they are right now. They end up 10-24 after the first 34 games of the season. In that 22-game stretch, after they started 5-7, they went 5-17. In 2024, just this past season, they started out through the first 12 games 6-6, perfectly adequate start. Then they continued to go 15-23. 15-25 after 40 games. And that 28-game stretch after the first 12 games, 9-19 was their record. Nice. This stretch coming up is when we will find out if Cardinals fans at any point this year will be invested. Because in 2023 and 2024, Cardinals fans at no point were invested in those two teams. Even last year, when the Cardinals were like 6 games above 500 at the deadline, people were like, I don't know, maybe a trade Helsley. It's like, wait, but they're in it. They have a playoff spot, like, within reach right now. This is the stretch that will define that for me, Alex, and I think for a large majority of Cardinals fans.
Yeah, I think after these 13 games, you're going to hear from a lot of Cardinals fans either it's like, hey, this team actually might be something worth keeping an eye on, or I'm done with the season. And it's different because I don't see any Chicago White Sox teams in this stretch of 13 games like it was last year, because after that White Sox series, I said, I'm done. Like, there's no way for me to come back from this when you can't beat the White Sox in a series. And look, you're taking on the Phillies, you're taking on the Astros, you're taking on the Mets, and I know the Braves are bad, but they're still the Atlanta Braves. This is going to be the stretch, though, that if you don't look competitive against these teams, if you're finding yourselves getting blown out of the water, maybe like the Boston Red Sox, or can't hit any of this pitching staffs, you can find reasonings for it. But what you can't do, I just felt like something blew up in here.
Is everything okay?
Tony, did you just break another table? Maybe somebody's doing shinny hockey above us right now.
Did people hear that?
I did. I jumped a little bit,
I'm
so
not
if
gonna
you
lie,
didn't hear it.
That was my chair for a second.
I thought we were going to have to go into a tornado drill, and I was have to duck down with my head in between my legs.
We're back.
Anyway, back to what I was saying. This isn't going to be anything where we sit here and panic because you lost to the worst team in Major League Baseball, but it is going to be where I look at it and say you can't be competitive with these teams. You can't even be a wild card team if you're not going to find ways to win games and be competitive against this stretch.
Yeah.
Real quick, T-Bone, we got this from John Fitz over on the YouTube chat. YouTube.com/101ESPN-STL. Guys, BK is invested in what a bunch of guys who can't play baseball and a coach who can't coach baseball and a front office who never led anything. Why would anybody be invested in this team? Because baseball's fun, man. Like that's what
is this where you take your rant?
No.
Here it is again.
No. Just baseball is supposed to be fun, and when you have a team that's winning, yeah, it's okay to be invested as a fan. But they have to convince you. They have not earned the benefit of the doubt by anybody thus far. So they need to go out there and do a whole lot of winning to convince you, the paying consumer, that they are worthy of being invested in. And if they do what they have done over the past 2 years, start 10-24 or 15-25, there's no reason for you to be invested. It will just feel like it's the same old Cardinals from the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, and that's what makes this so tough for them now is they missed. I mean, you mentioned winning is fun. They missed on banking wins early on here in this season. Like, they should have taken 2 or 3 from the Angels. They didn't do that. You should have been able to at least get that one game against the Boston Red Sox where Ryan Helsley has that blow-up. And then you got to take 2 or 3 from the Pirates.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to lose that first game, understandable. You got to find a way to win that third one. That went 13 freaking innings. You get a runner at second base for the final, 4 innings in that game, and you can't end up finding a way to win that baseball game. If you're able to do what I just said there, you're 8-4. And now you've got a little bit of breathing room before you start what is this crucial stretch for the Cardinals. And like you said, Alex, it's not like they're seeing any scrubs during this stretch. Like, we went back and looked. I can't remember if it was 23 or 24. They, didn't really play any playoff teams during that stretch. And they played the Mets, but at the time, you didn't really think much about the Mets. You look at this, I can guarantee you Phillies are going to be in the playoffs this year. Odds are I think the Astros are going to be in the playoffs, and Arnaud's going to regret not going there. The Mets are going to be a playoff team, I believe. And the Braves, we'll see. They may not make the playoffs just because of their slow start. Sure. They're not just going to go away quietly, though. That's my expectation of the Atlanta Braves.
Back too, so.
Exactly, and he looked filthy in his rehab start the other night. That's brutal.
And that's the thing, too. Like, I look at the series so far you've played this season, and yes, the Twins have a really good pitching staff, but the Twins are 4 games below 500. Like, that's the team that you have beaten. All of these other teams you have been unable to beat, they should be in the same line that you're talking about. The Red Sox, I don't think anybody, maybe people think the Red Sox are going to be World Series contenders. But if anything,
I think they're pretty damn good.
But if anything, people believe they were a playoff team. The Pittsburgh Pirates aren't expected to be a playoff team. The Angels aren't expected to be a playoff team, and you lost every one of those series.
I just want to see what the pitching looks like going into this weekend. That's my big question.
I can tell you right now.
That's very possible. I mean, the Phillies have a great lineup, right? They've got superstars all across the board. Like, if you are a fan of a Major League Baseball team, I think the Dodgers are the one that everybody holds up, right? Maybe it's the Mets. But the Phillies are the one that, to me, you look at and you're like, man, I wish my baseball team operated that way. They have done everything to convince you they are fully invested in winning a World Series. There is not a whole lot more that an ownership group can do to try to win than what the Phillies ownership has done. And they've got a couple of young players in Stott and Bohm, despite all of the offseason rumors, that they've decided to keep internally. And they've got a couple of young starting pitchers that they have groomed through their minor league system, and they did decide to build around. So the Phillies are a really fun team to watch, and I'm excited to see them at Busch Stadium going into this weekend. But this is a big test for your rotation, specifically for Pallante and Liberatore, because Michaelis, he's a separate conversation entirely, and oh boy, if this goes poorly for him, we are going to get a whole lot of text on Monday morning basically saying something to the degree of DFA him, get his ass out of here, and I'll understand it. But for Liberatore, this is a left-handed heavy lineup. For Pallante, that could actually work toward what his strength is. He's a righty technically, but he plays better towards lefties than to righties. And you look at the lineup this year, their best hitter for the Phillies has been Kyle Schwarber. He's been amazing to start out the season, already with 6 home runs early on. Also has a triple. Didn't know that was possible for Kyle Schwarber. Good for him.
That had to be somebody foul.
Somebody didn't make the right play.
Bryce Harper, obviously one of their best hitters in their lineup as well. You add in Stott, who's off to a pretty good start this season. They are very lefty-heavy toward the top of their lineup. Stott is one of their big right-handed hitters. He's been terrible early on. You got to keep him down, right? This is like the Pirates going up against Wilson Contreras. He's been awful. You know eventually it's going to get going for him. Don't allow that to happen against you. That's what the Cardinals have to do against Bohm. But otherwise, your left-handed pitcher in Liberatore and your righty that profiles as a lefty in Pallante, this should be, all things considered, a pretty good matchup for them going up against the Phillies. I'm going to be focused in on the pitching this weekend because, honestly, man, nobody hits against Wheeler or Nola, so it's going to be tough to come by runs. You're going to have to keep these guys to 2 to 3 runs with your starters in most of these games.
Yeah, that's why it does feel like I'm going to have a different perspective after these 13 games, even if they're awful in this 13-game stretch. I'm not going to be down on the offense. Now, will I start maybe sending out alarm bells if you're just uncompetitive against these teams?
I can guarantee
probably.
you will, yes.
Yeah, probably. I get pre-mad a lot of the time. But, like, I'm still going to look at it as, like, you've got these young guys playing, and, like, even there's going to be moments throughout this 13-game stretch that'll be like, hey, you know, he looked good in this at-bat. Victor Scott or Lars Nootbaar or Jordan Walker. It's the pitching that I think everybody's going to be like, I'm done. I'm done with this team. And I know we're too far in advance. We'll talk about this when we get there. But after these 13 games, then you've got 2 series against NL Central teams. That's going to feel an awful lot like what last year was against the Milwaukee Brewers, to where I was saying, like, no, completely done. Because, yes, you may fall to all of these teams that are wild card contenders, but, man, if you can't beat the NL Central teams, then what is the even point of talking about this team being a playoff team?
Other than the fact that we're on the radio and we have to.
No. I will boycott that, and we will always talk City SC and Battlehawks.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
And the Blues
not
will be going
losing.
for a cup at that point. So
Hopefully, if they figure out their offense.
Hey,
But
it'll be fine.
I do think, to your point on the pitching for this weekend, like, it's going to be telling a lot, because you're right. It's going to be a battle. I think it's going to be a race to 4, and that might be kind of generous. First team to 4 is probably going to win each of these 3 games in this series. So, King, you're starting pitching. Keep it close. Get to the bullpen. Hopefully, get to your high leverage arms in 2 of these 3 games. If you can get to Leahy, Maton, and Helsley, in theory, you should be good. Now, if you can do that twice, you should be able to take 2 or 3. Problem is, are you going to get that from Michaelis? Is Palante going to be able to avoid the 1 blow-up inning? Same with Matthew Liberatore. We'll see. The one thing I will be curious with the offense, I mean, you mentioned, like, you know, it's hard to hit these guys. One thing I'll be keeping an eye on, can they do what they did against Paul Skeens? And the reason I say that is it was so freaking cold. You could tell Paul Skeens, it was like throwing a cue ball. They kept saying that on the broadcast. It's going to be chilly this weekend, but it's not going to be like it was in Pittsburgh. So if this is real what we saw against Paul Skeens, then we will be able to see that this weekend, where they put competitive at-bats against Wheeler, Nola, and Sanchez.
I'm just ready for the excuses.
It's just like Wheeler and Nola are not easy, and then Sanchez is a lefty, and most of your best hitters right now are left-handed. And the guy that should be crushing lefties is Wilson Contreras, and guess what? He ain't hitting.
Yeah.
So
Herrera's on the IL.
3 for 3, and not a great matchup for you offensively. So I don't expect a ton offensively, and it will not alter the way that I view this offense going into Monday. I promise you. That's my perspective. I can't speak for Alex. Alex will be worried about the offense coming in on Monday morning. I can already...
You know what? Don't put words in my mouth.
I'm
now
very
I'm coming
confident in that.
and I'm going to be confident in them.
No,
but
you won't.
The pitching is really what I'm going to be honing in this weekend. It should be a good one. Cardinals versus the Phillies this weekend at Busch Stadium. Palante, Michaelis, and Liberatore on the mound for you. Nola, Sanchez, and Wheeler on the mound for them. Oh, boy.
I picked a good game to go to tonight.
You're going tonight?
Yeah. Katie and I are going tonight. Date night to the Cardinals game, so we might be leaving by the 3rd inning.
Yeah, well.
Go with Ted Drews, though.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Get that famous frozen
We'll go
custard.
enjoy it, and when they're down 5-0, and be like, let's go get some frozen
Out of
custard.
curiosity, what does a Alex, like, on a personal game date night look like? Like, are you going and what's the beer situation like? What's the concession situation like? What does an Alex Ferrario Cardinals Friday night game look like with the wife?
Like, are you asking what we eat and drink, or just like what we do?
Like, are you walking around the concourse? Are you locked in on the game?
Oh, no, yeah. We'll be... I mean, we won't be walking around the concourse. We might, like, take a couple of inning strolls. But, yeah, we'll be sitting in the seats. We'll be locked in. Katie's a big Cardinals fan, so she'll want to watch it.
Are you going to get, like, are we
gonna
going
get pre-med at the
seltzers?
offense?
Are we going
Yeah.
mixed drinks? Are we going standard Bud Diesel? Are we going...
We're going Budweiser, not Bud Heavy or Bud Diesel, whatever you people call it. It's Budweiser. But, yes, I'll probably go a nice Budweiser. She probably won't. She typically does not.
That's cool.
So she'll just enjoy probably
I was curious
some
on your side of things.
nachos.
I don't need you to...
Well, you don't want Katie's information?
I don't need you to give any of the secrets of your wife.
No.
But for you, I was curious what it looks
Yeah,
like.
you know, I'd probably go a little dog for T-bone. You know, a little hot dog with some Budweiser. No Bud Heavies, but just
Are
Budweiser.
you a dog or a brat guy?
Oh, I'm a dog guy.
Really?
Yeah, I've never
Especially
been
at a ball
brat.
game.
I've never been a brat guy. It's either dog or Italian Sazitza, not a bratwurst.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in on that.
But see, I don't eat a lot at Cardinals games. That's the thing.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, no, we always go eat before we go to
Tickets
the
are
Cardinals
pretty
game.
expensive going into tonight's game. On the
Everybody wants to see the
secondary.
freaking Phillies.
Well, look, full exclusivity. We didn't buy tickets. We got the media day tickets, so we're going. The only reason we're going to the Cardinals is
you
because
got
it's free and then we're in a suite.
I was about to say, isn't this the one that you get free food?
Yeah.
No. No, what's
You're
going on
asking
here.
like I'm going out here to spend. You think I'm going to spend money on the Cardinals game right now?
Coming up in 15
Absolutely
minutes,
not.
Brad Thompson will join us here on the show. He's going to give us his insight into what we can expect from the Cardinal starters going into this weekend. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line to get involved in the show. video. YouTube.com/101ESPN STL is also where you can go to be involved in the Graveyard Chat. But coming up next, we got to get to the Blues. We're about to find out who they trust for their playoff push. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Blues back in action this evening. Tomorrow, close to this evening.
It's not this evening, buddy. I'll be at the Cardinals game.
Kraken.
Is that why you looked over to your right?
Yeah.
Like, wait, I thought he just said he was going to the Cardinals game.
BK realized it. It's fine.
Blues back in action tomorrow night against the Seattle Kraken. They have 2 games remaining in the regular season with Alex and T-Bone on BK. We're about to find out who they really trust, Alex. I don't know if Colton Parayko is going to play tomorrow night or not. Hard to say. We don't have any insight into that because they are on the road and there are very few people on this road trip with them. But we do at least have the open-ended question on who's going to be that 12th forward. Will it be Matthew Joseph? Will it be Dalibor Dvorsky? What are their plans with that? Alex, what do you make of their roster crunch heading into the final 2 games of this regular season? What can we learn about that?
It's 2 different scenarios. If you're still chasing the playoffs, I think you're going to get a really good look at what they're going to have going into game 1, barring some type of injury. And, of course, Colton Parayko coming back, because I'm not really expecting him to play tomorrow. Maybe we get a surprise, but if they clinch a playoff spot, which is a possibility tomorrow, then I think you could see a lot of guys getting some rest on Tuesday. I think you could see a Sundqvist come out or a Shen come out, and you could see a Dvorsky and a couple of other guys get called up from the American Hockey League. I don't know if you're really going to have a tell of what the playoff roster is going to look like because there's still going to be some question marks up in the air. What does Holloway look like if he's available at all? Is Parayko back and at 100%? And what do they view of Dalibor Dvorsky? I think it should be set in stone that Jimmy Snuggerud is going to be playing in the playoffs, especially with the potential of Holloway not playing. The question is it going to be Joseph or is it going to be Dalibor Dvorsky? And honestly, it's a flip of a coin right now because I could look at both of their last few games and say, I don't think they're going to be in on the playoffs. It's going to come down to the matchup. If you're playing Winnipeg, you're probably going to see Matthew Joseph in that lineup because he's just a physical presence. But then you also have to put under this umbrella, what's Alex Texier's situation look like? Because Jim Montgomery does like Alex Texier. That is a shooter that could be in the lineup on that third pair. So I think there's a lot still to be up in the air. And if they clinch a playoff spot by Saturday, Tuesday is going to look very different in terms of getting guys rest before the playoffs.
Yeah, one thing that I'm going to be interested in down the stretch is not just like who's in, but also where are they playing? Yeah. Because they've got to figure out these line combinations, man. When Dylan Holloway went out, their 5-on-5 offense has really dried up. And it's their defense as well. It's both sides. Their 5-on-5 game in general has just changed since Holloway has been removed from the lineup. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what the best combinations are. I trust Jim Montgomery to figure this out. He's been somebody that has been able to, over time, churn through some of these combinations and find what ends up working. I don't love Kyrou on that top line. Not because it doesn't work. I think it works great. It was the one line that really worked for you in their most recent game. I just think you need more depth of scoring for a team that plays the way that the Blues do, that don't have true, top-end superstars, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl style. I would like to see them take Kyrou and bring him back down to that second line with Braden Shen. And from there's a million different combinations that you could go with. I personally lean towards Bolduc going up to that top line, but that's one thing for me that I'm curious about these final
You need Snuggerud or Bolduc to take that top line spot. You need one of them to just take it and run with it and be the sniper that they're supposed to be. Because all Jim Montgomery wants on that line is, one, be responsible. What Zach Bolduc has been this season, he's one of their best top plus-minus players, but just shoot the puck more. Like he ended the game against Edmonton with 0 shots on goal and 0 shot attempts. You can't do that if you want to be a top-line player. There's going to have to be at minimum 3 or 4 shots on goal if you're playing with Thomas and Buchnevich because both are distributors. Here's the one thing that I would warn people. These next 2 games, even if it still doesn't look great, don't panic. Because what they have after Tuesday's game, let's say they clinch the playoff spot on Saturday. It doesn't look pretty against Seattle, but they get in. Utah doesn't look pretty because there's a lot of guys that aren't in the lineup. They're going to have from Wednesday until probably that Easter Sunday when they start game 1 of the playoffs to just practice. That's almost 5 days of practice, guys. And we remember what they did coming out of the Four Nations break with 5 days of practice. Yeah. It turned their season around. So if 5-on-5 is still a little sketchy and Dylan Holloway's not back and Saturday doesn't look pretty, Tuesday doesn't look pretty, I'm still not going to be looking at this saying, man, they're going to get swept because Jim Montgomery's going to have 5 days to work with the players that he needs to on making sure you're ready to go for that game 1 of the playoffs.
One more day of rest for the Blues today. Back in action tomorrow against the Seattle Kraken. Big game, though, in the NHL for the Blues tonight. Wild versus the Flames. 9 o'clock puck drop in that one. Huge playoff implications for both teams. If the Minnesota Wild win this game, they clinch a playoff spot. It also goes a long way in helping the Blues clinch the playoff spot. If the Wild win tonight in regulation and the Blues win tomorrow in regulation, I believe that would clinch a playoff spot for the Blues.
Quick scenario, because I know we got to get to BT. If Calgary loses in regulation, the Blues just need a point against Seattle tomorrow. If Calgary loses in overtime or a shootout, then the Blues need 2 points in any scenario to eliminate Calgary.
There you go. That is your scenarios for the Blues. Hopefully they're able to lock everything down over the next 48 hours or so. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Brad Thompson, Cardinals analyst for FanDuel Sports Midwest, is going to join us coming up next here on BK and Ferrario.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals are back in action tonight, starting a series against the Phillies. First pitch is at 7:15, and then the Blues are back in action tomorrow, taking on the Kraken. Alex will have your pregame show right here on 101 ESPN starting at 8 o'clock, and then puck drop is at 9. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. We're hanging with Brad Thompson on 101 ESPN.
Hanging breaking ball from Brad Thompson. And boy, does he get a swing on it. Lift and separate and see you later.
Hanging with BT is sponsored by St. Luke's, ranked top 2% in the nation for cardiac surgery by Health Grades. Visit stlukes-stl.com.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN, and we are happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline via the YouTube feed, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL, where Brad Thompson is joining us now. BT, of course, Cardinals analyst for FanDuel Sports Midwest, joins us each and every Friday here on BK and Ferrario. BT, what's good?
This video today, I had to put pants on for this. That's great.
Well, that's good because Jamie Rivers doesn't typically wear clothes when he decides to hop on our Airlink.
I have
The other
heard.
day, BT?
I have heard that maybe he jumped in a little bit early. Was it in a robe?
Yeah.
Like a gentleman. Who doesn't wear that robe that everybody just puts on and hangs back up that they never wash in a hotel? That's a
BT, that is a great point because
nobody
I don't
washes
know,
that. The maids aren't washing that. Come on.
You've been in so many hotels in your life, BT. You know that those robes are disgusting. You can't put those on.
Look, I bet people have dried themselves, if not worse, with that robe. Not putting it on. Don't need it, but it looks nice sitting in there. And Jamie did it for show, and I appreciate his effort.
That's
You know me
disgusting.
too with bed bugs, man. There's probably bed bugs living in that thing also.
All right, good to know.
What's up, BT?
Note to self, don't use the robes. All right, BT, let's get into this. You were just in Pittsburgh where the Cardinals did play 3 baseball games, and I don't know if you heard, they played really well against Paul Skeens. Looked really good against him. What happened the rest of this road trip?
Boy, I was really hoping you were going to start with Paul Skeens for sure. Boy, it wasn't that good. Man, it was such a it was a frustrating road trip, obviously, for these guys, and I think that you're going to see this with a young team, especially mainly it's a young. See high highs and low lows. I think you'll see some of that roller coaster out of this ball club. So we saw a great start to the season. In Boston, you had 2 starters get shellacked early. That makes it very difficult to win some games, even though you saw a fight out of the offense. And in Pittsburgh, the third game was one you just couldn't eke out a run to save your life
Hey, BT,
and win that game.
I apologize for interrupting. I think we're going to have to call
Is
an
it the
audible
echo?
here. Yep, it's not just you. Apparently, this is going through the radio as well. Why don't we go ahead and call an audible? We'll have you call in. We would love to do the video
Give
with
me a
you.
call.
We do love your face, BT.
Let's do a rain check on the video side of things. We're going to have
I have spoken.
Sounds like there is a horrific echo going on for people
Is
in
it
the
horrific?
audience. Really bad. We have about 100 texts so far.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest guest on BK and Ferrario. I'll call you guys back. Bye.
All right, sounds good. We'll talk to BT here in just a moment. He's going to call us back instead of being on video today. The hope was that we could do this on the video. It's just not working. It is what it is. Hey, man, sometimes with the technology, especially on the YouTube side of things, things can go awry, especially when we are out here at the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Jordan is back in the studios for us today.
Panicking right now. Panicking.
And BT is trying to call us from his home studio. So, it is what it is. What BT said, though, is what we probably should have expected from this Cardinals team, right? When you have a young team like this, you should expect ups and downs. The hope is, though, some of the veterans would be less so affected by the ups and downs. And I think that's what's frustrating is like, yo, man, some of the worst starts that you've had this year were Eric Fetty and Miles Michaelis. One of the biggest blow-ups that you had that was inexplicable from the pitching side of things this year was Ryan Helsley up 4-2 in the bottom of the 9th inning. So, like, yes, this team has had some highs and some lows.
BT ready?
Also, some of that is due to the veterans. BT back on with us now via the Callier and Thompson hotline. All right, BT, I think we've got a better connection with you now. What did you see that went awry for the Cardinals on this 6-game road trip?
Look, I don't know, but I want that voice thing back. That was kind of cool. I really enjoyed that. Look, it was one different ways. Like I mentioned, when you get two starters blown out, that makes it very difficult in a game. Fetty got beat up in the first inning, and then Michaelis got torched in the night game. Like, you're not going to overcome those generally, even though the Cardinals offense tried to fight. So there's no answers for those. Like, when you have a starter get beat up, you're going to lose generally. The frustrating one, I think, was the last game against the Pirates. That's the team you should beat. Like, with all due respect to the Pittsburgh Pirates, they're not a very complete ball club right now. So those are the ones that you want to be able to sneak out. So as I was saying before in the God voice, you are going to have the ebbs and flows. You are going to have the ups and downs, but you got to figure out ways to win games like that.
BT, we love you.
We're good.
Yes.
Keep going.
I think we might be fixing the echo. We'll see if that ends up happening.
Is it my fault again?
Apparently it's worse. But again,
I
the
hear
hope
myself when I talk to you.
you do hear yourself?
Oh, yeah, and it sounds awful.
All right.
That's
Well,
just my
BT,
voice.
how about this?
This is the BKO.
We love you. We appreciate you. It's been great to be able to catch up. How about we do this again next week? How's that sound?
And thanks for breaking down the Paul Skeens game.
Yes, anytime, guys. I will talk to you guys next week.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That is Brad Thompson joining us. I see this each and every Friday, hopefully for a much longer, more thorough interview in future opportunities.
Do you think BT was just trying to get out of it with us, and he was just doing the echo himself? He was like, well, you know, VBBBK, trying to get out of it?
That'd be cool.
He was like, hey, I'm here to talk about Paul Skeens, and if you ask me a question other than Paul Skeens, you're not going to like the answer.
I talked bathrobes in hotels, I talked about cold weather, and I talked about the offense against Paul Skeens, and then an echo kicked in as soon as we were talking about the offense the rest of the way.
Somebody just said, it's gone now. Looks like it's working.
Well, yeah, it's gone now. He got off the phone.
Somebody said, just have BT text in, guys.
T-Bone, you do the voice of BT. We'll text him the question. You text him or give us the answer.
That sounds like a lot of work. I'm out on that.
Man.
Somebody said it got better half the time.
I think that's par for the course, though, for how the Cardinals have played over these last few games. You know, this actually checks out.
Our interview just to define the Cardinals road trip.
Yeah, I think Mike McKenna will actually work well because when we're talking hockey, they're on a roll.
We did get a text that said, sounds like you guys have some TMA audio engineers in there today.
Oh, that's not fair.
Yeah, whoa. I mean, Doty's panicking.
Doty's doing a great job.
Doty did probably break a table. We're just not sure where he broke it. Drew right now, I can see him working in his office frantically, and I think Jordan probably is panicking.
Somebody else said that would have been a great method of PR that the Cardinals would use to get out of tough questions.
That's true. Maybe Mo did that.
They should use that as like their next time at the problem is they do their press conferences in person.
Well, Ollie, next time we'll be like, oh, sorry, I'm having an echo issue in my office. We're just not going to be able to do it today.
Ollie, we're in person. What are you talking
No,
about?
this echo's kicking in and it's cold out here.
All right, well, I hope you enjoyed our Brad Thompson appearance today. He joins us each and every Friday on BK and Ferrario. We might have to move that to Thursdays. We'll see. But if we're going to have these issues out here at Centene, it is what it is. We might have to move our appearance by Brad Thompson. But we also only have a few weeks left of the Blue season. Hopefully months.
What in the hell, man?
We'll see.
Unbelievable.
Hopefully in the future, our Brad Thompson appearances are all via video, and I'll have fantastic clarity for all of you guys. And hopefully all the questions are very positive because the Cardinals are winning a whole hell of a lot.
But you know what this just means? This just means we've got more opportunities for you to ask us anything.
314.
No echo there.
399.
Never.
9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. I cannot promise that, given what we've had in the past year at our studio.
Us here in the studio.
Ask us anything coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios, this is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. ENB Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's Questions and Answers on 101 ESPN.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. I did want to pass this along. There's some stuff going on today in the Kansas legislature. I promise this is not like a political statement in any way.
A Kansas City guy.
But it is interesting for the sports betting side of things. They've got a bill, effectively, that's going through the Senate right now, and there's a chance that some of the sports betting apps would go dark if this ended up going through. Today is the end of their legislative sessions for the 2025 year. Yes, I said that correct. The 2025 year will end legislatively in Kansas on April 11th. It is what it is. Politics are weird sometimes. But it sounds like the top three apps might be the only ones that survive something like this. The reason I bring this up is because in the state of Missouri, I think they're going to do things a little similar to what Kansas had previously. Be curious to see what the future looks like for some of these sports betting apps, and if eventually we whittle it all down to just a few different options, which I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing for consumers. Yeah. All right. From the 314, guys, did you see that Tennessee's quarterback Nico is out of practice with NIL talks going on? With NIL deals being shakier than professional contracts, will we see holdouts become a thing in college? If so, it feels like it could be really awful. I think you're going to see negotiations that take place, and if there are negotiations that take place, both sides have leverage, and if you're a player, the one real piece of leverage that you have is you deciding to enter the transfer portal. That is something that players in the NFL do not have. So players in college are actually more powerful, strangely, than players in the NFL, especially with the franchise tag being a thing in the NFL. That doesn't exist in college, man. These guys can just walk. And if you're somebody like Nico, who's one of the 10 best quarterbacks in college football right now, dude, there's 100 other schools that you can potentially negotiate with. It's not just one or two. So, yeah, I think holdouts could absolutely become a thing, but I don't think it will be going into fall camp. I think it will be in spring when you see this, because the transfer portal opens back up in the spring window, and that's when you could see other schools start to tamper, and they say, hey, we've got $5 million for you, just waiting, ready to go if you want to enter the portal and come over here. And then he goes back to his school and says, hey, man, you guys got to match this $5 million or I'm out of here. So that's what I think this could be leading to.
Yeah, which is going to lead down a very nasty situation with college athletics, I feel like. There's going to be a lot of back and forth argument that's going to take place, and there's going to be rule changes that come into that somehow.
I don't know if there's going to be rule changes because the NCAA has
they'll try.
Authority.
I should say they'll try.
Yeah, I think that this is going to really – you could potentially really start to see this become more common in the spring, mostly with quarterbacks. I think quarterbacks is the number one position where you could see this because they know, like you're saying, BK, they have all the leverage in the world. There are a ton of colleges that may look at their quarterback situation in spring and say, I don't know about this. Maybe we can go out there and potentially lure away a quarterback like Nico to come to our school and see if we can really force the hand of Tennessee, because the thing with these Tennessee football – with these programs is – they've already kind of figured out, okay, here's what we have, because once the fall season's over, they've got to basically figure out, here's what we've got in terms of money to give out to these guys. Let's go and try and build our roster. And if all of a sudden you kind of pinch yourself up towards almost like your own salary cap, and Nico comes back and says, no, instead of 1.5, I want $4 million. There may not be a move for Tennessee. Yeah. It may be truly a, hey, you've got leverage. Okay, well, we can't do anything. And he may end up potentially going to the portal. So I think this is going to become more common.
From the 314, Alex, how does Torrey Krug's contract being on LTIR affect the Blues' offseason plans, if at all?
It doesn't affect it at all. If you guys go back and listen to the Doug Armstrong interview that he did with Spit and Chicklets, it sure sounds like Krug's not playing ever again. And now I'm not trying to put words in his mouth or anything. It's just when Paul Bissonnette asked him about the defenseman and how he turned it around, he essentially kind of slid it in there saying, like, well, Torrey Krug is not playing for us. Not just this season, but overall. So I mean, he hasn't been with the team with the exception of a couple of skates I think he had where he had the coach's gear on. I know that's when people were panicking of like, oh, Torrey Krug's coming back. They don't make the move for Philip Broberg unless they believe Torrey Krug is not playing again for them. So I don't think it plays into their plans at all. I even go back to the Nick Leddy comment where when they acquired Cam Fowler and somebody asked him about Nick Leddy, he said, look, Nick Leddy's not playing for us unless I get news otherwise. And they found out later on in the season. So I don't think Torrey Krug's going to be playing again, which is unfortunate for him, but I think the Blues are going to play in that direction.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything Sports or otherwise from the 636. Is just a comment on the college football conversation we were just having. Guys, these athletes should no longer be on scholarship making this money. They should have to pay for school and give these scholarships to people that need it. A lot of these players are not on scholarship anymore. They get NIL funds that will both fund their scholarship, quote unquote, and also pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, in some scenarios. So the scholarships aren't going anywhere. The athletic department for most schools operates completely separately from the university. If that's what you're saying, is like they should go from the student athletes to the university to give out to other students, that's not a thing that happens. But if you're saying, hey, they shouldn't have scholarships anymore, many of them, I would say most of them at this point, don't. But it doesn't really matter because it effectively pays for the school, so whatever.
I think student athletes should come first.
You're the worst, man.
Student first.
From the 636, guys, do any of you watch WWE, UFC, or Power Slap?
Power Slap, man, I see the highlights on that, and I think those people are crazy. I grew up watching WWE. Like, I grew up in the 90s, like when it was The Rock and Steve Austin. That was my era of wrestling. I do watch UFC now. I kind of pick and choose. Like, I'm not an avid UFC fight fan, but when there's big matches, heavyweights, or certain guys that just kind of get the gravitas with it, I'll watch those.
I used to be a big UFC guy. Growing up, we played UFC, the video game. I know that sounds silly, but it's just the truth. So we used to watch all the big matches down in my basement with some buddies. So high school all the way through, probably midway through college, I watched a ton. But I have not really watched a ton since then, to be totally honest with you. You used to watch a lot of the big boxing matches as well.
I still watch boxing all the time, too.
But yeah, today, no, I don't really watch much of any of it. Honestly, that's just mostly a matter of time. With what we do, I devote my time to the things that matter the most for the show. So I've got to prioritize watching as many Blues games as I possibly can, the Cardinals games as often as I can, NFL, college football, Mizzou certainly, Illinois, SLU. Those are the games that I prioritize, and then anything else I can fit in is great. But that's just a matter of, do I have time? Does it interest me more than whatever I could otherwise be doing, which a lot of the times is like hanging out with my son. I'll prioritize that personally.
Yeah, I've never been into the boxing, UFC, Power Slap, WWE, stuff like that. I especially UFC, like I enjoy kind of like hard-hitting sports like football, for example, hockey, when you get kind of those physical bouts that you see. UFC's just too much over the top for me. I can't watch it. There's just something about it. I've never been into it, and I've tried, and I just can't do it.
Yeah, UFC's fun. If I didn't do this for a living, I would probably watch more UFC, honestly.
Especially when you get those, like, there's like legit rivalries that get into those, and sometimes you have some really massive fights. So. From
the 573, guys, what's your Mount Rushmore of TV shows? That's a great question.
Okay, well, The Office is number one for me. People know that. I would put South Park up there.
We're going to have very different lists.
Yeah, I can tell already.
Sopranos.
Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it.
What do you mean you couldn't do it?
I've tried twice to watch Sopranos. I've given up like 5 episodes.
Legitimately one of the best TV shows that have ever been made.
Wow, I'm surprised by that.
And I'd probably put Seinfeld up there, too.
Seinfeld's good. I don't know if I'd put in my Mount Rushmore, though. I would have Breaking Bad up there. I thought Breaking Bad was excellent. I think that's got to be in my Mount Rushmore. I'm trying to think what else would fit in that.
I have Sopranos on mine. The Wire's on mine for sure. I would probably put West Wing on mine as well.
This might be a hot take because it's early. I would put The Penguin on there. I think The Penguin was unbelievably good.
You didn't like The Sopranos, but you liked The Penguin. I don't think I understand that.
I can't take your judgment on television shows if that's what it is.
Sopranos is basically just like without, I guess, superhero side of things. Without the superhero side of things, that show. I would guess The Penguin has a ton of influence from The Sopranos.
Oh, I'm sure it does. I don't know. For some reason, like I watch it, it starts so slow. And I was like, I can't do this
anymore. You got to push through it, man. That's the one thing I don't like when people say that.
When you're watching a TV show at 1 a.m., it's a little hard to just push through.
You were the one that yelled at me when I said Paradise is bad, and you're like, you got to watch it.
You fall asleep at like 8 o'clock at night for crying out loud.
Neither of you guys would have Game of Thrones on your list?
I never watched Game of Thrones.
Okay.
I totally forgot about that. Yeah, I would put Game of Thrones on there. That was excellent. I mean, a lot of people hated the ending. I actually didn't mind the ending. Don't text in and gripe about that. I thought the ending was fine.
Yeah.
I know this is really early, and it's definitely recency bias. The Pit might be on my list.
Really?
It's absolutely outstanding.
It's hard for me to put a show on that list that's fresh. Like, because part of me was like, I'd put Blacklist on that list. But
I definitely would not.
Then it was like, man, there's too many better shows than that. Like, if I'm putting a show on a Mount Rushmore, it's one that I go back to all the time.
Somebody mentioned Twin Peaks. I've heard great things about Twin Peaks. It's been recommended to me by multiple people. I need to watch that show. I have never seen it, though.
I've never even heard of that for a TV show.
I've heard fantastic things about that.
Yeah.
But I've never personally seen it, so I can't speak to that. A lot of people have Sons of Anarchy as well. I know for a lot of people that's on their list. Breaking Bad is up there for me. I'm not sure it would be in my true, my Mount Rushmore. Dexter's another one. I liked the show. The last season just
it
was so bad.
See, the problem with some of those,
it's tough for me to say that it's in my top 4
The problem with some of those shows is once you watch it that first time, you're not really going to keep going back and watch it because you know what the hook is.
Because it's a mystery box, right?
Yeah.
Like that's for me Severance. I promise I'm not going to give anything away here, but the whole show is about the mystery, and then once you know what the mystery is, it suddenly becomes less appealing to you. But Severance is beautiful to watch. The actual filmography of it all is
very good.
Great, but yeah, I don't know, man. Somebody mentioned Ozark. That was one for me that is.
Dude, I couldn't watch.
Sopranos for you is Ozark for me. It never did.
See, I
anything
enjoyed
for me.
Ozark. I don't think I'd put it in my Mount. I'm trying to figure out what my last two would be because I've got Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones. I'm trying to think what else would be up there.
Ozark was too dark and it was way too quiet. Couldn't watch it.
Yeah, I don't know. Just never did.
Gave up on it.
It did not grip me at all. I watched the first season and a half, similar to House of Cards. House of Cards, the first episode of the second season, I saw what happened in that episode. Somebody gets hit by a train, and I was like, I'm out. I'm done.
Okay.
I literally made it one episode into season 2, and I was like, this has gone off the rails, and I'm good. I'm good here. Somebody said Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That might be my 4th.
That's a pretty good one.
Man, I never saw that one.
Yeah,
That is one that was on my list to go.
I mean, nothing that pushes down, nothing pushes off The Office for me.
One that I don't think it would crack my top 4. It would be a lot closer than I think people would expect. Slow Horses on Apple TV is very good. It's like a British kind of spy thriller, and each season's got its own story. So it's not like you could basically start season 2
I'm
and
sorry,
be fine.
man, but some of these shows you're listing off, and then knowing that you didn't like The Sopranos, I'm so I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm like, T-Bone, these are terrible takes.
I liked Tokyo Vice, actually. That's another one that I would throw into this list. Tokyo Vice is another one that was fantastic on HBO. Did not get a lot of publicity, but it was a good one.
I don't know that.
No
one.
idea what Tokyo Vice is.
I think I actually have heard that. I think my dad told me that one was
TV
good.
show. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. YouTube.com/101ESPN-STL is the place where you guys can go to watch us over there on YouTube as well. T-Bone, do we have Mike McKenna coming up next?
Mike will be joining us, in theory, on the phone.
With echoes.
All right, so we are hopeful that Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie, will join us with 2 games left in the Blues regular season to talk about what we should be expecting from them, what we should be looking for in the final couple of games of the regular season. Mike McKenna next, hopefully, here on BK and Ferrario.
and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. We're going between the pipes with former NHL goaltender Mike McKenna.
Between the Pipes is refreshed by Macadoodle Spirits, fine wine, beer, and cigars. Now open in Darden Prairie.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. By the way, Jordan Deacon's done a fantastic job for us back in the studio today. Doty's done an awesome job as well. Also want to give a shout-out to Drew, who's helped us out on the technical side of things today. And we are hoping that everything holds up for us to go out to Callier and Thompson Hotline to be joined by Mike McKenna in the final week of the regular season. Mike is a former NHL goalie, and he joins us each and every Friday on behalf of Macadoodles. And I know he's going to sound crystal clear on the other side of this phone line. Mike, we appreciate the time as always. How you doing today?
I got you guys with that little pause, didn't I? I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Do you hear an echo?
Yeah, the pause isn't the problem.
Well, I'll tell you what. We're hanging in Macadoodles. You guys let me know what we're going to get on air today. I'm ready for you.
Do you hear an echo? Do we sound like T-Pain to you, Mike?
No, you don't sound auto-tuned to me. You just sound fabulous, BK and Ferrario.
That's what we love to hear.
I'll accept it. That sounds great. All right, Mike, let's get into this thing, man. Blues have lost 2 in a row, which for them constitutes like some kind of absolute crisis mode.
The sky's falling.
Given the fact that they had won 12 in a row prior to that. Mike, what have you made of their recent game? Has there been any struggles, any aspects of it that has stood out to you?
Not quite as hard in front of the net. I mean, that's the obvious one. They've allowed a couple goals in pretty close proximity to their goaltenders. I feel better that they still haven't allowed many opportunities on the rush against. I do feel like the weight of the season's finally caught up to the Blues a little bit. I mean, and this is dating back a little bit over a week ago. So before we talked last Friday in advance of the Colorado game that the Blues won 5-4, the night before they won in overtime against Pittsburgh. Then it was another barn burner against the Avalanche. Well, in the last 3 or 4 games, they've allowed 3+ goals. And that's kind of unusual for this club at this point. And it hasn't really been shots. I think it's just been a little bit stale, right? Like, I think they're due for a break, frankly. Like, they've had 2 days off coming into tomorrow's game. Schedule, they've got one after that's not too bad. They're going to need it, man, because going on the road to Winnipeg and Edmonton after you just played a couple at home like that, 3, every other day, that's just tough sledding. So I think they just looked a little tired more than anything else.
From a goaltender's perspective, Mike, because we were talking about this a little bit before the show, when you see the amount of goals that have been given up, and then when you go back and look at them, do you feel like that's more on the goaltenders maybe struggling or hitting a wall, or is this the defenseman that you feel like is kind of breaking in their own end?
I think there's a little bit of both of this. I don't think the goalies have struggled at all, but I do think like that tiredness that I was talking about before can affect a goaltender too, where there's a bit of a mental complacency almost, I'll say, and when you've been rolling, like things have just gone right for so long. The one thing that really will affect a goaltender over the course of the season when you're playing night in, night out, frankly, sometimes you just get a little bit lazy finding lanes, finding pucks, finding a shooter, finding the threats. That's the only thing to me, especially with Bennington watching last night's game and the previous, was that just didn't seem quite as active finding pucks. And it didn't prevent him making first saves, but I think if he'd done a little bit better job with that, he would have been able to maybe put that first shot into a better place or swallow up a rebound and help his own D out a little bit. So, yeah, to me it's a little bit of both, but I think I've been pretty happy with each of them. I still think Joel Hofer has a level of athleticism we have yet to see, or I hope we see. That's one thing for him. You can find these little details as an old goalie, and I know there's just a little bit more he can eke out, and I'm sure it's going to come over time.
Mike, as a follow-up with all of this, if the fatigue has truly set in and a team just needs to hit the break and get a few days off, obviously we're still waiting to find out if they make the playoffs. What's that difficulty like as a team when you get to that break that could potentially be 4 or 5 days before that first game of the playoffs? How does a team juggle that and kind of flip the switch back into playoff mode?
Have a big rager. Everybody have drinks and a barbecue. That's how you do it.
You were calling for Macadoodles there, weren't you?
Yeah, we're sponsoring it. No, listen, I say that kind of facetiously, but I also mean that. When you get some time off, it's really important for your team to celebrate a little bit. And I don't mean this literally like go on and have an absolute rager. What I mean is it's a perfect time for your team to get together to celebrate a season where you've made the show. You're in the dance. You deserve to celebrate that. Have a dinner, literally have a barbecue. Like get it catered in, bring in Sugar Fire. I don't know if they could say that, but like bring in somebody to cater it. Have all the wives, the girlfriends, the kids. That stuff helps. I think it helps reset. And myself as a player, it's always something I tried to do with the teams I was on was, every round of playoffs, every time you make the playoffs, have a barbecue, get the people together, just relax and forget about hockey for a day or two.
We're talking to Mike McKenna here on 101 ESPN for just another couple of minutes. Mike, how would you evaluate where this team is at without Dylan Holloway? How do you view this lineup right now without his presence?
Well, he's been the diesel in the truck, dude. Like, I as much as, Robert Thomas gets so many accolades, third star of the week, and Kyrie's having a banner year, I'm not sure that there's any player on the Blues that's had a bigger influence on the club that in a growth pattern than Dylan Holloway. Jake Neighbors has been Jake Neighbors. He continues to impress. Parayko's had a great year. But Holloway, to me, has been the biggest surprise and also the biggest driver. And you can just sense that his teammates feed off of him. And, yeah, having him out, now we're looking at him for experience, guys, because the players that are coming in to replace him have virtually none. Jimmy Snuggerud and Dvorsky, they're coming in the lineup. And even Bolduc doesn't have a lot of games. So I think there's a bit of an experience element. There's a comfortability element that's not quite there. I think Holloway lets the Blues be more patient with the puck, especially in the offensive zone. They know where he is. They trust him. Whereas, with your new guys filtering in, they're going to be pretty decisive with the puck. It's going to go to the net. It's going to somebody else. They may not hang on to it as long. So his presence is definitely missed, but I don't think this team is in a bad spot by any means with Dylan Holloway on the lineup.
What has stood out to you, Mike, of what you've seen from Jimmy Snuggerud and Dalibor Dvorsky?
Well, Dvorsky, I think, his awareness is pretty solid and it's improving. I remember in the preseason, it really looked like he just wanted to have the puck on his blade at all times. And now I think he's learned that you got to use everybody around you and you got to be responsible on the back check. You have to be. And that's coming for him. Snuggerud, though, it just stands out immediately how he carries that puck and how comfortable he is with the puck on his blade. And he's really good at finding open space. Frankly, he's made Braden Shen's job pretty easy at times by getting to open areas for him. But I also like that he's pretty puck hungry, man. Like, you can just sense that he wants it. He's willing to go to a corner. He's willing to get in and get that puck. And I think we're just starting to see what he can do with the puck on his blade as far as shooting it. And you start to think about Bolduc and Snuggerud and Holloway in your lineup. These guys have big-time shots, guys. Like, big-time shots. Kyrie's got a great shot on the rush. Thomas is improving when he gets it off. But those three guys, those three young players, I'm really impressed to see those guys pick corners over the next 6, 8, 10 years as a Blue because I think they're really elite at it.
Mike, final question that I've got for you here on BK and Ferrario. Joins us each and every Friday here on the show on behalf of Macadoodles. We'll ask him about some of the cool stuff coming up at Macadoodles here in just a moment. If you were in charge, and I mean, we all have trust that Jim Montgomery will find the right combinations, but if you were in charge and you could put together what your line combinations would look like right now, how would you do that in these final couple of games of the regular season as they're trying to find that right chemistry?
Well, the top and bottom, you don't mess with it at all. Buchnevich, Thomas, Kyrou, keep them together. WTF, there you go. I'm not as quite concerned with the middle. I think you keep Shen and Neighbors together as much as you can. I'd like to see Jimmy Snuggerud and Dvorsky move around a little bit. Same with Bolduc. I'd like to see all three of those guys, even Neighbors, kind of mix and match in the middle of the lineup. I'd like to see them also get some time on the power play that's tangible, top line minutes on the power play. But I think you're not as concerned with where you put them in the middle, the second to third line, as you are just seeing where you think they're going to fit in a series against a tough team, in a series against a fast team like you saw with the Oilers. That's what Montgomery's got to be thinking about in my eyes, because these two lines aren't necessarily set in stone. You're going to get Holloway back. You know he's going to go on the second line. But what's that third line going to look like? And you're going to need to play serious minutes with that third line. You're going to have to do it against good teams. You're going to have to do it against Connor McDavid if you want to win a Stanley Cup. So I think last night was really, or the other night against the Oilers was a really good indicator of what he's going to look to do. Maybe mix and match and see what works best against certain teams.
Mike, we'll get you out of here on this. I know you guys have some really cool events coming up at Macadoodles. What can people expect for you guys out there?
Yeah, we do, man. We're hitting it heavy this month. I tell you, we got events going like crazy. Tomorrow we're going to have people in the building all day long. We've got to have next week Ed Belfour's coming in on the 17th. That's right. Everybody that was at the old St. Louis Arena knows what I'm talking about. Belfour. Well, there's a lot of people excited to come see him on the 17th here at Macadoodles. We've also got an adult Easter egg hunt coming up on the 19th. There will be allocated bottles available in Easter eggs. We'll have an E.H. Taylor, a couple E.H. Taylors, a couple Eagle Rares, some Blantons, a couple Fortalezas for our tequila folks hanging out there. We got some great wine events coming up these next 2 weeks. We got an Italian wine event on the 23rd, Piedmont, Italy. Be there for that. You can always find everything at Instagram, Macadoodles, Dardine Prairie, and Facebook the same way.
Mike, we appreciate the time as always, man. Next week, we'll be able to catch up leading into the playoffs for the St. Louis Blues, as long as they get things taken care of this weekend and then into Tuesday. Appreciate the time as always, my friend. We'll talk with you again next week.
That sounds great. Thanks, guys. We will be talking playoffs. They are making it. It's happening. Go Blues.
That's right.
Like to hear.
That's right. I just don't want to say it definitively.
Yeah, no,
People
BK
in our
can't say
audience
it.
will get mad.
He's
It'll be a whole
contractually
thing.
obligated.
It's just the whole thing. Mike, appreciate the time as always, man.
You got it. I'll say it.
There we go. He's Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie, joins us each and every Friday here on BK and Ferrario on behalf of the great Macadoodles. In 15 minutes, we'll continue our conversation here on BK and Ferrario. But next, who goes down when the Cardinals bring Gorman back? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So Alex, T-Bone and I are doing a new podcast. It's called The Redbird Report.
I've never heard of it.
Highly recommended for anybody that wants to hear just 45 minutes of solid Cardinals content. You can hate everything that I have to say. Don't worry, T-Bone does too, and he will give you his perspective on this show.
A lot of eye rolling I do.
You can check it out on the 101 ESPN app, 101ESPN.com, wherever you get your podcast, whether it's Spotify, Apple Play, whatever it is, it's going to be available for you over there. We released a new episode yesterday. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because one of the conversations that we had, Alex, was what do you do when Nolan Gorman returns? He's eligible to come off of the injured list this weekend. The expectation is he will be back very soon than after, because they said up front, like, hey, this is not a big deal. We're doing this more of as a precaution. He probably doesn't even need the full 10 days, but we're going to give it to him to just make sure we're in a good spot here. If we take them at their word, risky thing to do given what their injury history is, he should be back at some point this weekend. Alex, when he returns, whether that's Saturday, Sunday, maybe even beyond, what do you do? The two options seem to be Thomas Saggese or Michael Ciani. Do you lean sending one down over the other?
You asking me or asking what the Cardinals will do?
I'm asking you first,
Okay.
and then we can get into what the Cardinals will do.
If it's me, Michael Ciani goes down. I don't believe he has a role on this team with the exception of defensive replacement late in games. And I know Ollie loves having that option. He's speed on the base paths, but I don't need to worry about that as much as I can see what Thomas Saggese has done in a couple of games and see that the bat is at least impactful. Now, would you prefer him to play rather than be a bench player? Absolutely. But I'd rather get him some opportunities when they arise, and his bat actually plays off of the bench. So if you get into late inning games, we've all seen this team do that. Saggese can be a bad option for you. But on top of that, he's also a utility piece. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having a guy who could play 3 or 4 different positions rather than a guy who's going to play either center field or right field late into games.
I agree with that. I think when you look at the Cardinals, if you're going to be let me rephrase it. They are an offensive identity is what their team should be, because they just don't have the pitching to do that. And I think the pitching will get better as time goes on. Even then, I do not think it will be as good as what the offense has shown. So if that's the case, I think you can go with a scenario where you say, hey, we need Thomas Saggese up here. And especially because right now, without Ivan Herrera, you're very left-handed heavy. And it allows you to now have multiple weapons off the bench against lefties, and in Luken Baker and in Thomas Saggese. And Saggese gives you a little bit more versatility. You don't really need that fourth outfielder, backup center fielder, and Michael Ciani right now. If Scott needs a day off, you just put Newpar in center field. You then go with Donovan in left, and that also creates an opportunity for one of Saggese or Gorman, depending on who you're facing that day, to get a start at second base. And the other thing for me is Jordan Walker defensively looks above average, and I don't necessarily think that they need to be turning to the hands team as much. Though that is their best defensive alignment, which is Ciani in center and Scott in right field with Newton left. I don't think they've got to worry about that, because as we've seen right now, their pitching is the biggest problem. And even with the hands team, it's causing problems for them to where they're blowing leads, and now they're stuck with the hands team out there when they get things turned back around offensively. And that's their biggest problem. In theory, the defensive idea I kind of like, but as I'm seeing with their bullpen right now, It doesn't matter how good of a hands team you throw out there. The bullpen's still giving up these runs because these hits are where nobody's at. So I think it's probably best case scenario to send down Ciani and keep Saggese here when Gorman's activated.
I'm glad you mentioned Jordan Walker, because his defense in right field to me is what makes this decision super easy for you. You don't need the hands team the way that you did at the beginning of the season. Walker has been good in right field. At a minimum, I mean, worst case scenario, the worst thing you could say, he's been average. He made that play to end the game the other night in the win against the Pittsburgh Pirates. You probably remember it. It's the one win that the Cardinals had while they were on their road trip.
I don't remember that.
he was the one that made the play that secured the win for them, and that was a tough play, man. He had a great jump on it, a really good read, and he was able to track it down. That is not a play that he makes either of the last couple of seasons. No chance. That is an extra bases hit in that spot. It ends up tying the game, and the Cardinals probably go into extra innings instead of winning it right then and there. So I think he's been fine, and you need the offense right now, and Walker's been one of your better hitters so far this season. So to me, you need the flexibility. You also have 3 of your next 7 games coming against left-handed pitchers. You've got Sanchez and then Valdez and then Peterson coming up against New York. I would rather have Thomas Ajayci available for those games. In fact, he's probably starting in all 3 of those 7 games. So basically half of your games after Gorman returns, Ajayci should be inserted into the starting lineup. I'm not sending that guy down.
No.
Not when the alternative is I'm basically utilizing Michael Ciani as a late-inning pinch runner. That just doesn't have the same value.
Yeah, he's had 2 starts so far this season, and both were when they were trying to get days off.
Does Michael Ciani have?
He has a total of 8 at-bats.
Yeah.
And 8 at-bats, 7 of those 8 came in the 2 Pittsburgh games following the extra innings game versus Boston, and then, of course, the extra innings games against
And those were the 2 days
Pittsburgh.
that he got somebody a day off.
Yep.
If you have Ajayci in the lineup, you should be able to utilize, by the way, Ajayci at second base, and you just bump Donovan back out to the outfield, even if you're getting guys a day off. So
and you have Burleson as an outfield option as well that can do a corner spot.
And listen, I know they don't want to go to Lars Nootbaar as a consistent center fielder. I don't blame them. You shouldn't have to. Like in this 13 games and 13 days stretch, Lars Nootbaar should get 1, maybe 2 starts in center field. Probably 1 in that stretch. In every other game, you should go with your young guy in Victor Scott starting every day in center
need
field.
a defensive. You just mentioned it. Like you're replacing Walker, who I think has been fine, and Victor Scott is covering ground right now that I don't need to worry as much about my 2 corner outfield spots.
It's the same conversation as the backup shortstop, right? Like traditionally, I would think you would say, hey, we needed to carry a Fermin or what's the guy's name? I can't ever say Barrio. Thank you. When he's up here, I'll learn it. Barrero as the guy that, hey, just in case we need a backup shortstop, we need to have that guy. Cardinals decided not to do that.
Also, Ajayci is more of a shortstop than either of those.
100%. Then why not do that at center field as well? Especially because Scott, to your point, is playing great defensively. Now, maybe this is a conversation when you get 2 months into the season, and especially since these are still 2 young guys, both at shortstop and win and in center field, who I'm focused on now with Victor Scott. Maybe there then becomes a conversation of, hey, we maybe pushed Scott a little too hard. Then you can maybe have that conversation of Ciani eventually returning back to the big leagues. But I don't think you're there now. I think you're at the spot where you need to operate a little bit with some with a little bit more urgency because of where they're at right now. I mean, they're potentially, we talked about in the opening segment, this is the 13-game stretch that could potentially already determine their season.
Yeah, to me,
At least determine the outlook for fans.
Yeah,
sure.
You mentioned it at the beginning. This isn't a team that's going to be winning baseball games 2-1, 3-2. This is going to be a baseball team that's winning 8-6, 9-7, things like that. And I'm going to keep the best offensive options possible on my roster rather than worry about trying to have a hands team that can go out in the 6th inning.
Yeah, and I know you guys had mentioned, I think it was you, T-Bone, about, yes, he's a young player. You want him to play every day, and I'm talking about Thomas Ajayci here. This is his role. Like, dude, I don't see a scenario in which he has a different role than what he's in right now for this team. And
Unless
I'm not just talking about for
moves in the
2025.
future.
I'm talking about for 2026, 27, 28, 29, beyond. What's his future role as an everyday player here?
It would be in the Donovan role, right?
Yeah, super utility.
Prior to this year, when Donovan was the super utility guy, which was, hey, he's technically an everyday player for us, but that could mean second base one day, third base the next. Maybe he's in left the next day. Like, that would be his future role. Yeah. But he's not. That's not the spot right now. Right now, it is probably better for him to be learning at the big leagues.
And I don't think it's the spot in the future. J.J. Weatherholt is coming. The expectation is that he will be a second baseman for you eventually. So Brendan Donovan would then take that role on again. And Brendan Donovan is a better player than Thomas Ajayci. I'm sorry, he just is. So the role that Thomas Ajayci is going to have most likely here in St. Louis, if he stays here in St. Louis, is the role that he is currently being tasked with. So go ahead and get him started. This is what I said last year about Luken Baker. Hey, man, this guy is not going to be a starting first baseman for you. He's just not. His role is going to be, this guy is right-handed, and he mashes coming off of the bench. So go ahead and bring in your lefty reliever. We'll put Luken Baker in. This is our Hulk. Good luck. Like that's going to be the role for Luken Baker, and it's never going to be more than that, and that's okay. Sometimes I think the Cardinals are very hesitant to accept this is the role that this player can have for us long term. They wait way too long to get to that place, and for Thomas Ajacey, this is the role. It's not changing. He's right-handed. That's nice. That helps given how left-handed heavy your team is. Just let him go play. And if that means he gets 2 starts a week, comes in late innings for a pinch hit situation a couple other times, cool. It's like 10 to 12 at-bats a week. That's not a bad situation to be in. Maybe in a off week, it's 7. It's 8. All right. Isn't that more valuable for you right now than him getting 20 at the minor league level? To me, the answer is yes. You've got to start prioritizing this major league roster, and I think this is the best way to do so.
Yeah, you're not at the point anymore where you got to worry about the development for certain guys. Now you're at the point where you need to see what it looks like at the major league level. And I know JC's younger than a lot of these other guys we're talking about, but let's see it. I mean, he's already made an impact as a bench player and a guy who comes in replacement for players. Why not try and capitalize on that? And if that is his role moving forward, depending on what the roster moves look like, you need that. You need that if you want to compete. 100%. So keep him up here. Michael Ciani does nothing for this team to win baseball games because you're not trying to win a World Series. If you're trying to win a World Series, I think Ciani's got a role on this team. But for right now, you need to develop.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 15 minutes, we're going to dive into the junk drawer. But next, who has been the Blues MVP so far this year? I think there is a few nominees. We'll give you our thoughts on that next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. It's a busy time for the Cardinals this weekend. They're kicking off their series against the Phillies. First pitch tonight is at 7:15. The Cardinals are in Seattle taking on the Kraken tomorrow night. Alex will have your pregame show right here on 101 ESPN starting at 8 o'clock, and then puck drop is at 9. Taking us into Sunday, the Battlehawks will be welcoming in the DC Defenders. That game starts at 2 o'clock, and then STL City will be welcoming in the Columbus soccer team starting at 6 o'clock. I'm Jordan Deacon. This Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So who's been the Blues MVP so far this season? Easy question, difficult to answer, because I think there are multiple good answers here, Alex. If you wanted to say Robert Thomas clearly has been their MVP so far this year, the guy's unbelievable. He leads the NHL in points since February 1st. Look when he took off. Look when the team took off. It's not a coincidence. They coincide, and when the team was at its worst, he was at his worst. I could totally listen to that argument. If you want to say Dylan Holloway, hey, look at the way that they've played without him. Pretty clear that was the engine that was pushing the Blues along. Sure, I could listen to that argument as well. Hell, if you wanted to say Jordan Bennington has been the team MVP so far this year, I could listen to that as well. Alex, for you, though, what would you say is your top choice for the Blues MVP so far this year?
I mean, it's hard to steer away from Robert Thomas, so he would be close second to Colton Parayko. My MVP would be Parayko, and I know that sounds insane because a lot of people are thinking like Alex, they went on a win streak without Colton Parayko, and yes, that's true, but also what has been the narrative of this Blues team from the start of the year with Drew Bannister versus when Jim Montgomery took over? They've been one of the better defensive teams in the NHL. And at the beginning of the season, mind you, Drew Bannister was the coach. They did not have Cam Fowler. Broberg was out for a month. They were playing P.O. Joseph and Scott Perunovich on their third pair. Colton Parayko was eating about 24 minutes a night. And he put up his best offensive season in the NHL. I think if he weren't to get injured, he would have been in the at least top 5 of the Norris Trophy voting this season. So, yes, they went on a winning streak and put themselves in the playoffs without Colton Parayko, but I think Colton Parayko was the guy that kept the team's head above water at the start of the season, made them really run when Jim Montgomery took over, and then, of course, the system's been in place.
So I would go Robert Thomas, and the reason for it, and I know that might be the chalk answer.
Sure, it's okay. Sometimes chalk is right. Look at the Final Four this year.
Yeah, look at my bracket.
Exactly. The reason I say that, though, is, and I think I would have really considered Colton Parayko if it weren't for the fact that I saw them go on the winning streak without him. And that is not a shot against Colton Parayko of see, we can do this without him. No, it just proved to me hey, this defensive core was a little bit better than I expected. Man, I saw what happened when Robert Thomas was out for 12 games, and I saw what happened in January for a 13-game stretch where he had 7 points and was a -8, and we were saying you should blow this thing up because the Blues fell apart without Robert Thomas playing at the level he's playing at right now. And what has happened since the Four Nations break? He has turned it on. He's turned his game to the next level. He's the best player in the NHL in terms of points since the Four Nations break, and also Pavel Buchnevich, honorable mention for being the best Robin out there. If Robert Thomas doesn't turn this thing around and he just kind of coasts through the second half of the season and continues to struggle, this is not a playoff team.
Yep.
They are not a playoff team without this turnaround from Robert Thomas. And you add on top of the offensive numbers that he's doing now, he's playing really well defensively, shutting down the other top lines. I hate to go chalk, but I think he is this team's MVP this season.
I think that's the right answer. It is the chalk answer. You're correct, but sometimes chalk is right. And I think it's the right answer. If I was to go different, I would probably go with Dylan Holloway. Because that guy has been so incredibly consistent. And he affects every aspect of the game. I was just looking at the numbers, the under the hood numbers earlier today on what's gone wrong for them in the last couple of games. But really, you can stretch it back. It's been like the last 5 where things don't quite look the same as they did before. And it's not exactly coinciding with the Dylan Holloway injury, but it's pretty damn close. where suddenly the Corsi numbers are starting to creep down below 40%, and the high danger chances are lower for you and higher for your opposition once again. And it's just a lot of the stuff that we saw earlier in the season starting to creep back into their game. I think Mike McKenna is correct in some of this. Like, some of it is just, I think they're dead-ass tired.
They are.
Some of it, though, is I think Holloway brings a lot of that to the table. He's a guy that gets out on the forecheck and keeps the puck in the offensive zone. He's a guy that when you have those odd man rushes, it doesn't just become a scoring chance. It becomes a one of either he or Jordan Kyrou have a high danger chance right at the net, depending on how they decide to play it defensively. So I think Dylan Holloway, if I was to rank this thing 1, 2, 3, for me, he would come in at number 2. I'd have Robert Thomas 1, Dylan Holloway number 2, and then I could list. I could probably go a number of different directions from there. I think I would go with Parayko 3, but there's a lot of different. I mean, you could go Jordan Kyrou 3 as well. He's been awesome this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's carried your offense. Steve-O mentioned in our pre-show meeting Pavel Buchnevich, who could also be in that conversation. I mean, look, the matter of fact is it doesn't matter how you rank them. Those have been the 3 most impactful players for this team this season, which, I mean, one of those guys wasn't even here. Another guy I think people still weren't sold on, and another guy being Robert Thomas. It was just a matter of can you stay consistent. So, and that's – we didn't even mention your goaltender.
I was just about to bring this up. I love the fact, and this tells me a sign that the Blues are building in the right direction, if you didn't think that already, that we haven't mentioned Jordan Binnington.
Yeah. I did at the very beginning. But
well, because it tells you, well, he was in like our top 3 there.
Sure.
And
he
the
shouldn't
reason
be.
Exactly. And the reason I bring that up is, I mean, you think if you're saying, hey, it's Holloway, it's Thomas, it's Parayko, hey, we're throwing Buchnevich out here as well, then it tells me that when you kind of would peek under the hood, it's not. I don't know if this feels kind of fraudulent. Like you think back a couple years ago, and it was that Blues team that was kind of hanging around. I think it was the year they fired Berube.
Yeah,
and moved to Bannister.
when Bannister took
they were
over
kind of
last
hanging
year.
around, and you were watching them going, my gosh, Binnington is standing on his head. This guy's been unbelievable. And then you'd go, well, who's the MVP? Well, obviously it's Jordan Binnington because the other guys, like, they've been okay. I feel great that Jordan Binnington is your 5th best probably guy, 4th or 5th best guy to put into this conversation as the quote-unquote MVP of the team, because that means he's not having to be relied upon to do too much.
Yep.
I think it is sending you in a direction that is similar to the Jets. Now, I don't know if the ceiling is what it's been in the regular season for the Jets. The hope is that the ceiling of the playoffs is a little higher than it's been for the Jets, but, I mean, they have a lot of guys. Hellebuck is the MVP of the team, but if you wanted to, you could make the case that it's actually Kyle Connor or Mark Scheifele
or Adam Lowry
or Josh Morrissey. Like, you could go in any of those directions. I certainly wouldn't make the case for Adam Lowry, but if you want to for a 35-point player, go ahead.
Why would you?
But that is what the Jets have been able to do is they've created a team that top to bottom is just really tough to play against night in and night out, and they also have, the best goalie in the NHL, arguably.
Well, and they did it without superstars. I mean, I think people would probably put a Kyle Connor there. Connor Hellebuck, of course, is a superstar, but, I mean, you'd have to squint to put Kyle Connor in that conversation compared to what some other superstars are, and that's how you've done this.
I think I would consider Kyle Connor in that. He's not in the, I don't even know what the categories are nowadays, but he's not in the Austin Matthews. He's not Connor McDavid. He's not Leon Draisaitl.
He's not a top 5 or even a top 10 winger, in my opinion.
Really?
In the game, yeah.
Top 10 winger?
Yeah, because I could go through and list off 10 other wingers before I'd get to Kyle Connor. Like, he's the best winger on that team, but he's not going to be in a top 10 winger. Like Kucherov is at that one. You would put Mikko Rantanen in that one. You would, I'm trying to think of some, Matthew Tkachuk in that one. I know he's injured, but he's still at that list. Like, Kyle Connor to me is a star.
Pasternak.
Yeah, Pasternak. Mitch Marner.
William
Nylander.
Marner.
No, I would take Marner or Nylander over that.
Really?
Yeah. And it's I mean, he's a different type of player. Like, he is a goal scorer, and I'm not taking it into
he has 55 assists this year, too.
Exactly. He's a star player, in my opinion, but he's not the guy that when you're going a top 10 list of what he's a right winger, I think he is, or a left winger. When you're going a top 10 list, I think you're going to probably come up with a couple of different names before you get to Kyle Connor.
Man. I think I would put him in the top, 7 on the wing. I might even have a top 5 right now, given what he's done. I mean, this is now consistent in terms of the production that he's putting out there year to year. And he is, we talk about who's the guy on the Blues that you circle, and when they're able to do that, you have an opportunity to shut them down. Dude, he's the guy that every team circles. And over the last 4 seasons, Kyle Connor has gone 47, 31, 34, 40 goals. And in that season last year, he had 65 games, 34 goals. That was a 40-goal pace. So 3 of the last 4 years, he is a 40-goal producer for the Winnipeg Jets. I think I would have him in that criteria now, man. And the hope is, if you're a Blues fan, like, you may be developing one or multiple of these types of players as well. Like Jordan Kyrou, the hope is, could he be in a similar vein? Because it was a pretty similar start to their careers, Jordan Kyrou and Kyle Connor. I don't think he has the same shot as Kyle Connor. I want to make that clear. But goal scoring wise, like, it was 31, 34, 38, 26, and then boom, 47 for Kyle Connor. Could you see something similar maybe for Jordan Kyrou? That I think that's the hope for you if you're a Blues fan right now.
Yeah, well, and I mean, the way that other teams build it, they need 2, 3, 4 superstars to have any success. You look at Toronto, you look at Edmonton, you look at Florida. Even Tampa has done this to where they've centered it around Kucherov and Hedman and Vasilevsky, and then they've just figured we'll add in the rest of the way. It's a different brand of hockey to build with, but, I mean, to have 3 different guys that could be argued as an MVP for the season and not a clear cut, that's the guy. Because Winnipeg, you can make the argument all you want. Connor Hellebuck's been their MVP.
Sure.
You know, you go to the Edmonton Oilers, you can make the argument all you want. Leon Draisaitl's been their MVP this season. So, Kucherov for Tampa, he's been their MVP. I can't make a clear-cut decision on who is the MVP for the Blues.
I think it's Thomas. I think it's pretty clear based on the ebbs and the flows of the season, like almost directly correlating with when Thomas was playing at his best versus when he was playing at his worst. I think this year it has been pretty clear to us who the MVP has been, but we were just thrown off the scent because he was playing, I think, really poorly for like a month. And so it was like, oh, man, he is your least valuable player right now with the way that he's playing. They can't get out of this until Thomas starts playing better. And guess what? He started playing at an elite level, like literally best in the NHL type of a level. And the Blues played at a best in the NHL type of the level right as that took place for him. So I think it's pretty clear this season Thomas has been one, at least for me. Yeah. I would have everybody else battling for that number 2 category.
Yeah, I would have an argument for him. I don't know if it's as clear-cut. Like, I think he kind of legs it out. He sticks his head across the finish line before the other guy does. But, I mean, I could legitimately look at this and say, like, there's 2 other guys that carried this team when Robert Thomas wasn't, so it's hard to give one guy the MVP.
He's Alex's T-Bone on BK. Jordan Deacon back in the studio for us today as we're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out of the Centene Community Ice Center. Coming up in 10 minutes, does it still make sense for the Cardinals to go to a 6-man rotation during this 13 games in 13 days stretch? We'll talk about that in 10 minutes. But next, we're going to dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. ENB Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, we're going to take the junk drawer a little different angle today. Normally we would go something kind of off the rails. Today we're actually going to stick in the sports lane because I do find this situation with Tennessee to be really fascinating. Their quarterback, he goes by the name Nico. That's what I'm going to call him because I'll be honest with you, I will never pronounce his last name correctly, and I do apologize.
Just try it. Just try it.
I believe it's Imalivova.
There you go.
Nailed it.
Nico, their quarterback, is holding out of spring practice right now. Their spring game is coming up, I believe, this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. He's looking to get a bigger NIL deal. The spring portal closes here within the next couple of weeks. He has leverage because there are definitely teams out there that would be willing to spend $3+ million on him to get a new deal to transfer to, Texas A&M or Georgia, Alabama, whoever. And so he's going to Tennessee and saying, hey, my price has gone up. The market has changed since the last time that we negotiated, and he's ready to get a new NIL deal with Tennessee. He, according to Chris Lowe of ESPN, is asking for $4 million from Tennessee. Alex, I think this is going to become more of the norm. I don't think it will be with regularity, but some of the top players can exert their leverage this way if they want to in the future in this portion of the calendar where the portal does open back up and other schools are looking for big-time positions. What do you think is the fix for this if you're college football? That's where I think things get really interesting because, okay, yes, we can acknowledge this is probably going to happen more in the future. Cool. But then what? What's the answer for schools? There has to be something put into place here, but I don't know what it looks like.
Is it closing the potential of the transfer portal earlier so you can't do this?
I think there's going to be less restrictions before there are more. That's what the court system seems to be doing time and time again. At every point that there is a restriction on a player's mobility, the courts say, nope, can't do that.
Yeah, I don't know because I don't think this is going to be just football. I think it's just going to be specifically like quarterbacks because they're the ones that have this leverage that can say, like, no, you're going to give me $4 or $5 million.
Or elite players, like wide receiver, offensive tackle, cornerback, defensive end. Those are going to be the positions that can do.
I don't think there is a fix to this because there are going to be teams or schools, I should say, that are willing to throw the money at the kids that are available because it makes them better. And if the option is in front of them and they've got the money, how do you fix that if you're college football?
Somebody on the text line said, well, you make them sign 2 or 4 year deals. Yeah, you can do that if there's a CBA.
Yeah,
if there's some kind of collective bargaining. But how do you collectively bargain with 130 teams?
Exactly.
How do you collectively bargain when all of these conferences play by separate
And even
rules?
now, there's not a players' association.
Yeah.
Like, that's the other thing. And the conferences don't like.
And the players churn over every 3 to 5 years in college football. So you're just going to. You're going to have guys negotiating right now for players that are participating in college football 3 to 5 years from now. That just feels weird too.
I think that's probably the only answer because maybe closing the spring portal would help, but I don't think you should do that to limit the mobility of some of these guys. I think the answer will have to be it almost operates like a professional sports league. Now, how you get there, I have no idea because it would first start with kind of what we're talking about, which is these conferences don't operate independently. They all work together, and there is a commissioner that they actually listen to, unlike the NCAA president who has no power, essentially. He's nothing more than like an action figure as president. That's where it starts, is you've got to basically come up with the same formula like the NFL has, where you've got all 32 owners kind of work together. There's the commissioner that kind of runs things, and then the players would have to be in a players association of some sort. But if I'm a players, why would I want that? Especially because of all the free. This is great for Nico.
This is better if you're a player.
Exactly. I just don't know how you get there. I don't know how you close those loopholes. And I agree there's probably going to be more of the wild, wild west before you find a way to fix this. But if I'm being honest, I just think this is the wild, wild west. I don't think there is a fix for where this is going.
Somebody on the text line said, guys, to an extent, I think this could be a good thing. It could potentially spread out the talent. I think that's what's happened. I think we have seen the depth of talent for a place like Georgia, Alabama, those legit high-end teams. That has been spread around.
Yeah.
Like Darius Smith is a defensive end for Mizzou. He's going to be a starter for them probably this upcoming year. He was expected to be this past season, but he tore his ACL right before the season. He was a third or fourth defensive end on the depth chart for Georgia heading into last season and decided to transfer to Mizzou instead. That's a guy that just spends 4 years at Georgia in the previous iteration of college football. He was like a 5-star recruit, superstar. Theo Weiss was another guy. He was getting some playing time but wasn't quite getting the targets for Oklahoma. Former 5-star kid. In a previous iteration of college football, he stays there instead of coming to Mizzou. So, yes, it has spread out the talent a bit, and you can make a pretty strong argument, and I would, that that's good for college football. But there's also this stuff that happens, and it holds these teams hostage to a degree. I think the natural end point is that you just have two main conferences, and I think it's just football. Like, football almost has to break away from everything else. It's the Big Ten and the SEC, and they will each have, 16 teams in their respective conferences, and that becomes the league, right? Like, it's the 32-team league, effectively, between those two main conferences, and they go in on it together of what the negotiations are going to look like long term. And that means, the ACC becomes like a secondary factor. The Big 12 becomes a secondary factor. All of these other conferences are on their own, and they got to figure it out on their own. But I think that's probably the place where we go eventually, is two main conferences, maybe even they expand a little bit, and you see them being the ones that really come up with these rules long term. I don't know how you do it. It's not going to be easy, but that's I don't think you can do it if you try to get everybody under the same umbrella. I don't think that works.
Like we said in Ask Us Anything, this is typically going to come with a lot of people getting pissed off, and it's going to come with the NCAA being forced to try and do something, and the NCAA going, what are we supposed to do?
They can't do anything.
Yep.
The NCAA has no jurisdiction. We have been told time and time again by what the courts have ruled that the NCAA is effectively just an organization that oversees the NCAA tournament. That's basically it now. They're in charge of the tournament for college basketball, and that's about their oversight right now. It all comes down to the schools and the conferences, and they get to dictate where this thing ends up going.
Well, I'm sure this will go great.
I think it's going to take 5 to 7 years before we really get to whatever the end point is for this version of college football and this version of really college sports in general. But this is an inflection point that we have not seen yet. This is the latest iteration of this. So we'll see where it ends up going. The story is all taking place today at the University of Tennessee as their quarterback is holding out of spring practice to get a bigger NIL deal with the university. Coming up in about 15 minutes, the Blues need to get back to what made them the toughest team in the NHL to play against. Can they do it in time for the postseason? We'll talk about that in 15 minutes. But next, does it still make sense for the Cardinals to go to a 6-man rotation during this stretch of games? We'll talk about it here at BK and Ferrario.
and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. The Cardinals have said all along they plan to go to a six-man rotation during this stretch of games where they play 13 games in 13 days. Now, the rationale for this is the same rationale as to why Eric Fetty was pulled early from the game, or why Sonny Gray was pulled when he had, 71 pitches thrown in his game as well.
Yeah,
He
it
had
was
been
cold.
dealing in that one.
1-2 throw about it.
The rationale is very simple. They believe, and the numbers bear this out, the majority of pitching injuries take place in the first month of the season. So how do you push back against that? How do you have guardrails in place to prevent yourself from becoming vulnerable for those injuries? Well, you give them more rest. You don't have them throw as many pitchers effectively. You baby them. And I'm not saying that to demean them, but that's what this is. That's what that would be. Alex, I think the downside to a six-man rotation sometimes doesn't get talked enough. It's not really about your rotation. It's not about the number of starts that any given guy gets, especially on this staff. To me, it's about what it does to your bullpen. Because right now, you have Steven Matz out there in a break glass in case of emergency situation. And I kind of like the idea of using him as a true multi-inning reliever, not just bring him in when you are down by 4 to finish out a game. Your starter gets through 5. This dude's coming in for the final 4 innings. Our bullpen basically gets an off day that day. And so that's what you could utilize him as in this stretch where that becomes a quote-unquote off day for your bullpen. Well, if he's going to start, you pull that opportunity out of your bullpen, and now all of the other dudes that are out there, the other 7, they got to work extra time. They get basically no days off over the course of this 13-game stretch. So I think there is every bit as much downside as there is upside to going to a six-man rotation. I get why they want to do it, to get that built-in work for Steven Matz. But to me, now that we're here and we've seen what the first couple of weeks of the season have looked like, I would not go to a six-man rotation right now. I would keep it with what you've had, keep Steven Matz in the bullpen, use him accordingly, and instead of using him as that 6th starter, use him on a day where your starter is fine but not great, gives you 5, and he can end that game for you. So that's my personal perspective on it. How do you view this?
At the beginning of the season, I was all for it because I was like, hey, because I was under the impression Steven Matz was going to be in your rotation, and I wanted to see either Liberatore or McGreevy. Now they've put Liberatore. They know McGreevy's not coming up. You can't do a six-man rotation if your bullpen is this bad. And if the only reason you're wanting to do this is so that you can lengthen out Steven Matz and you want to have that ability and get some rest a little bit for the other guys, that is going to put you in such a shamble in this 13-game stretch that you're not going to be able to overcome it because your bullpen arms are going to just be completely gassed or broken. So, yeah, I don't. There's no point in doing that right now. I don't need to stretch out Steven Matz to be a starter. If we get to that point and an injury pops up and he has to, fine, we'll do that on the fly. But for right now, no. You keep going what it is because Steven Matz is arguably your 4th best pitcher coming out of that bullpen right now behind Maton, Leahy, and Ryan Helsley. That's a little problematic.
T-Bone, do you want to talk about this or do you want to talk about the lineup that was just released?
Lineup game?
I had a fun number on the starting pitching, but I like the lineup better.
Lineup game.
All right, I want to say this up front. If you're going to play the lineup game a little bit later on today for the next few minutes, keep your radio on. But just turn it down a little bit for me, okay?
Yeah, just talk about the starting pitching to yourself.
Yeah.
Cardinals lineup going into tonight's game against the Philadelphia Phillies. They are going against Aaron Nola. There's an off day for somebody in here. Batting leadoff in left field is Lars Nootbaar. Batting second is, what would you guys guess?
Wilson Contreras at first base.
Nah, he said somebody's getting off day. That's probably
Wilson Contreras is off. So
my guess is either Donovan or Wynn.
No, yeah, mine would be Wynn or Walker because it's a righty.
Who would you guess?
Win.
Jordan Walker in right field is batting second tonight in your lineup.
That's why
batting
you don't have a righty.
third as your designated hitter today is Brendan Donovan. Batting cleanup and third base is Nolan Arenado. 5th in his normal spot, Alec Burleson at first base. Pedro Pajes is batting 6th for you behind the plate. 7 is Victor Scott in center. 8th is Thomas Sajaci playing at second base. And 9th today at shortstop is Mason Wynn.
So JC a lefty?
So JC is a righty.
Oh, okay. So there you go. Left, right, all the way through.
Yep.
Yeah. This is just, I mean, you don't have Ivan Herrera. If Ivan Herrera was healthy, he'd be hitting in that Jordan Walker spot, and we wouldn't be talking about it right now. I do understand it's good to sit Wilson Contreras.
I like it.
You needed to do one. 48 hours off, you needed to do one.
I find it really interesting that JC's getting the start today, man. Really interesting.
You think it's an audition before Gorman comes back?
He's going to start tomorrow. Tomorrow you're going up against a lefty, so you got to have him in the lineup tomorrow. So you're basically saying back-to-back days that Thomas DeJacy is going to be in this lineup. So yeah, I'm with you, Alex. I think this is basically an audition of, hey, you're going to get an opportunity. Go out there against Aaron Nola, and then tomorrow you're getting the chance against a lefty. I also think if they're trusting him against Aaron Nola, you can't send this guy down.
No, well, I was just going to say.
It would make no sense.
As it should be, he should be getting back-to-back starts right now. He's 5 for 11 for you. His bat should be in the lineup, and you should find a spot for him to play every single game.
The other audition that they're going with here is Walker in the 2 spot. Sure. I find that interesting as well because – Walker, we talked about this. If you haven't checked out the latest episode of the Redbird Report, I highly recommend it. BK and I talking Cardinals baseball for about an hour.
Yeah, subscribe, rate, review, do all of that stuff over on Apple Podcasts, YouTube.
I appreciate this pumping up of your podcast. Let's pump up Last Minute Blues.
When we get to a
Last Minute Blues podcast is out there as well.
What the hell, man?
But on that episode, we did what we called news or noise, and I brought up Jordan Walker has the highest ground ball rate of his career so far. It's at almost 60%. And he's still hitting the ball hard. He's got the top bat speed in all of baseball. But if you look at his hit chart on Baseball Savant, and this isn't the end-all be-all, it basically just draws a diamond around the diamond because nothing is getting up in the air and going for base hits. But the on-base is high. He's not slugging, and I think that's part of the thought process right now by Ollie Marmol. I kind of like it. I would have probably preferred to go with Mason Wynn in the 2 spot over Jordan Walker. But I do like that they're saying, hey, here's a little carrot. Right, you've had a good start. Let's reward this. You know what? Now, sure, the reward's against Aaron Nola, but okay, you get a reward here. Let's see if this is real or not. I kind of don't like it, but I also am kind of like, okay, I'm intrigued by this.
I love it.
This is the way you do it, man. You put a carrot in front of a guy who's done well for you.
The reason that who's been better recently than Jordan Walker? Mason Wynn, who had the tough spring training. And that's the only reason I would say I like the idea of Mason Wynn the 2 better.
Here's why I actually love this, and I argued for Mason Wynn to be batting second. That was my personal argument. The reason that I love this is because Mason Wynn's not your everyday 2-hole hitter for the foreseeable future. He's not. He's probably going to be batting 8th or 9th long term. You know who could be, though? Your everyday 2-hole hitter for the long term for the St. Louis Cardinals? Jordan Walker.
See, I don't.
I think Mason Wynn locks down the bottom of your batting order.
I think this was a short-term Band-Aid now.
Maybe, but Jordan Walker absolutely has a higher percentage chance of clicking somewhere in that top 5 than Mason Wynn does. And to me, if this works, you just keep him there. And then if Wilson Contreras starts hitting the way that we expected him to, he probably goes back up to that 2 slot, and you drop Jordan Walker back down. But if Walker takes this thing and runs with it, man, there's a real opportunity here for him to take advantage of what has been presented to him. I do want to get your thoughts on this, T-Bone. I want to get Alex's thoughts as well. I want to hear from the audience as well. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll continue with this conversation. The Cardinals have released their lineup for today. Jordan Walker batting second in right field. What do you make of it? Them giving an off day to Wilson Contreras. We'll talk about that next here on BK and Ferrario.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you're playing the lineup game later on today with the boys on the fast lane, go ahead and turn your radio down for like the next 30 seconds or so. The Cardinals have put out their lineup for this evening's game against Aaron Nola and the Phillies. Lars Nootbaar batting off as always. They've made a change, though, in the lineup. Wilson Contreras off today. They're going with Jordan Walker as the two-hole hitter. That's the biggest change in this lineup. The other one, because Wilson Contreras is off, they had to put somebody in. That is Thomas Ajayci today, will be batting 8th and playing at second base. So those are the big changes to your lineup heading into this weekend series against the Phillies. Alex, I like it. I made the case for Mason Wynn to bat second. I personally still would have done that. That would have been the method that I would have gone with for a matchup like this. But I get the case for Jordan Walker. If this guy is going to be the hitter that they think he can be, batting second is not out of his range of outcomes. In fact, it's very much within his range of outcomes long-term for this team. He has speed. He is a guy that puts the ball in play with some regularity right now. He's not striking out a ton. He has been taking his walks a little bit as well so far this year. He's got, I think, out on the season like a 370 on base percentage. So things are not necessarily trending in the right direction with Walker, but I get the appeal of having him in a spot like this. I would also assume, based on them having him up in the lineup today, specifically against Aaron Nola, they probably like his bat path, his plane, going up against that profile of pitcher. So that plays into this as well. I don't mind it. I think it's a smart move. I also like the fact that Wilson Contreras is not in there. It shows you a little bit of urgency. And we've all been asking for them to show some urgency in the first month of the season. Yesterday, they optioned Chris Roycroft. It was a move that we all thought should have happened. A lot of us were skeptical that it would happen. They did it. They did the thing that we asked of them. Bare bones basic, but they did it. And today, we all wanted them to make a move in that two-hole because it clearly was starting to snowball on Wilson Contreras. And guess what? They did it. So it's not perfect. This team isn't perfect this year, but they're making some of the moves, showing some of that urgency that we have been asking for, and I will applaud them for that.
Yeah, no, I will too. Now, there will be people who still blame Ollie, and I don't think their minds will ever be changed. I really like the decision with Jordan Walker, and I understand the argument for Mason Wynn, but to me, as great as Mason Wynn has been, he is holding down that bottom three of your batting order, which is essentially setting you up for success offensively for how good Lars Nootbaar has been. I want guys that can get on base in front of Lars Nootbaar for how clutch he has been for this team, and it's an opportunity to get more guys to score runs. I would put a carrot in front of a Jordan Walker. Are his numbers great after this road trip? No, absolutely not. But it's one game. My expectation is it's just kind of a placeholder, and Wilson Contreras will get right back into that spot once he returns to the lineup. But put a carrot in front of him. Let's see what Jordan Walker, because if you looked at the Cardinals front office and all polled them, that's what the hope was for Jordan Walker's trajectory, being a impact bat, batting somewhere between 2 and 5. So right now, you've got a hole that needs to be filled. Walker's numbers may not look great, but you know what? Let's give him a shot to see if he can pounce on it.
Somebody on the text line said, guys, the real issue that they have with their lineup is the commitment to going left, right. That's the real issue. Scott, Newt, Donovan should be your top 3 right now. You could make a case for that. You could. You start the game that way, and then you just say, you know what, we'll take our chances against your lefty relievers. We believe that our dudes are better than your dudes. I get the case for that. I also understand Ollie saying, yeah, but those guys struggle against lefties, and that opens up like an obvious bring in a left-handed reliever at the very first sight of seeing Victor Scott. That guy mows through Scott, Nootbaar, and Donovan. Then I can bring a right-handed reliever in to mow through your right-handed hitters. Like, it does become a little easier to navigate for the opposing manager, and what he's trying to do is make things as difficult as possible for that manager. But if I was to argue against that, devil's advocate here, this makes it harder for the opposing starting pitcher.
I was just going to say, get the damage done in the first 5 innings then.
Yeah. That would be the argument to go this direction. So I see both sides. I personally like the lineup that they put out there today, though.
Yeah, I don't mind Walker in the 2 spot, and it probably is more of a profile thing. It probably is because Nola doesn't really have a wipeout slider. His go-to is the curveball. that probably makes more sense then for Jordan Walker to be a guy that is going to end up hitting in that 2 spot for the Cardinals. I just think the way he's played over the last road trip, it feels a little odd for timing purposes, because in that road trip it was a 451 OPS for Jordan Walker. He went 4 for 21. Meanwhile, Mason Wynn, who started the season off really bad, we talked about pinch hitting for him in a game against the LA Angels, turned it on. 348 batting average, 901 OPS. That feels like the perfect time to, hey, let's strike while the iron is hot and put him in this 2 spot. But to me, it reads that they're not going to end up sticking with this. I'm not going to pat them on the back for showing urgency yet until I see where Contreras hits tomorrow. I like the idea that they are going to give him a day off.
But against a lefty, Contreras, I mean,
he's not. The Pirates attacked him with a lefty yesterday. Right. It'd be one thing if he was hitting lefties right now. He's not hitting righties, lefties, a beach ball at this point.
And I do believe Wilson Contreras will go right back. This feels like a placeholder.
And I like that I do like that they are saying, hey, let's take 48 hours here. Yeah. Let's try and reset this thing. This is not us benching Contreras by any means. Let's just reset. But my gut tells me that they will put Contreras back in that 2 spot tomorrow. And if that is the case, I think it's still I think it's a mistake by the Cardinals. I think he should be hitting around 5. Now that complicates everything. And then you have to try and figure this out with what you're going to do, especially if you're going left, right. I don't know. I'm okay with the Walker thing. I'm not trying to say, like, this is the worst decision Ollie's made it all year. That was in the game against the Pirates on Wednesday. But I just think it's weird timing to be doing this when this guy's been struggling over the last 6, and yet you're going with Mason Wynn, who's been on fire right now, and you're still hitting him in the 9 spot.
I think they're going to go back to Jordan Walker tomorrow against a lefty. That would be my guess. The one thing that's holding me back here is the profile of pitcher. Sanchez is a guy that can potentially do some. He is a little problematic for a guy like Jordan Walker, so maybe you end up going with Wynn in that 2-hole tomorrow. You know, I will be curious. That is something that I think we should keep an eye on, is what they decide to do against a left-handed pitcher. And then on Sunday, please do not put Jordan Walker in that 2-hole. Please don't do that.
No, Sunday will be Sajacy.
Sure, cool, that's fine. Just don't put Jordan Walker in the 2-hole against Zach Wheeler. That would be a disastrous potential outcome there. But I like that they did this. I think it's a smart call. I'm glad that again, to me, this shows a little bit of urgency. They saw that, okay, we've got a problem here. We've got to do something about it. Let's do some more work pregame. That's my assumption on what they're probably doing here. Is Contreras will get a ton of work pregame with Brant Brown. It's probably like his pet project right now is you've got to get this guy going. And give him a full day off, clear his head mentally. He had the off day yesterday. You build in today as an off day as well. He'll probably, I would guess, be back into the lineup somewhere tomorrow. We'll see where that ends up being. Hopefully he's able to get himself back on track. If he does, this offense could be really good, man, because everything else around him is clicking into place pretty nicely. The thing that you thought was a certainty has not been a certainty for you so far this year. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. The Blues need to get back to what made them the toughest team to play against in the NHL. But can they do that without Dylan Holloway in the lineup? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. This Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. This weekend on 101 ESPN, you can hear the Blues take on the Seattle Kraken tomorrow night. Alex will have your pregame show right here starting at 8 o'clock, and then Puck Drop will follow right after at 9. And then on Sunday, you can hear the Dodgers take on the Cubs beginning at 5 o'clock. I'm Jordan Deacon. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy. Together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T1 on BK, the Blues need to get back to what made them the toughest team to play against in the NHL. Alex, it's pretty simple here to me. They have become a team that is easier to play against in front of their own net. They were really difficult to get any of those high-danger chances. For the better part of 6 weeks, they were the best team in the league at preventing high-danger chances. We talked to Mike Kelly of NHL Network about that. They were also great at creating those high-danger chances in front of the net. A lot of that offensively was from Dylan Holloway and the work that he was putting in on the forecheck, the opportunities off of the rush. So he's a big part of that. He shouldn't be the reason, though, that you're giving up a bunch in front of your net right now defensively. What's gone wrong in that area?
I think defensively, it's a little bit of what Mike McKenna told us. I do think fatigue has become a massive factor. And, look, the two games that we're talking about, I guess you could go even 3 with that win that they had against Colorado. I mean, those are some really tough opponents. And if fatigue sets in, you gotta imagine. Like, Winnipeg to me was a perfect example of, like, they started that first period and Winnipeg started to play a little nasty in front of the net, and they're like, you got to be kidding me. It's like we don't have it right now. I think some of that gets righted once you get Colton Parayko back, and some of that also gets righted once you just get a little bit more rest. Like the 2 games before Seattle, I'd expect them to be a little bit more ferocious in front of their net. The 2 games after, or the 2 days off before Utah on Tuesday, I also expect the same thing. So I'm not as concerned about the holes that have taken place in their own end. I think that gets tightened up when Parayko returns and with the rest that they're about to get. The bigger concern for me is the 5-on-5 offense.
Yep.
That is the part to where you're not going to the front of the net, where it could also just be fatigue. But go ahead and look at the even strength goal differential, guys, in this from the Pittsburgh Penguins loss all the way up until now. Here are your 3 of your top 6 even strength goal differential players. Dylan Holloway, Jordan Kyrou, Braden Shen. The other ones are Broberg, Thomas, and Cam Fowler. You need somebody to play with the same style that Dylan Holloway does so you can have that second line back. I don't agree with Mike in terms of keeping Kyrou on the top line. That's the last thing this team needs to do because now you've just broke the other 2 lines. You've got to find, like Neighbors on this list in terms of even strength goal differential. Neighbors is top 12 on this list. You put Neighbors back with Thomas and Buchnevich. You've got to have somebody with skill and speed on that line with Shen and Kyrou. My opinion, I would go with Zach Bolduc there. But if you want to do Snuggerud, fine. The only way you're going to get back to that 5-on-5, 1, is the commitment to just going to the front of the net and take a beating. But 2, the reason we saw them so dominant was because look at the time on ice at even strength with these guys. 14:50 for Dylan Holloway, 15:59 for Robert Thomas, 12 minutes for Zach Bolduc. They were evenly distributed. Go back and look at the Jets game and then the Edmonton Oilers game. Man, the top line was playing 20 minutes in that game versus the third line that was playing 12. You just don't have an even differential of going from top to bottom and can rotate line combinations.
The 3 guys we're really working with here are Bolduc, Neighbors, and Snuggerud. We, at least for you and I, Alex, because we agree Kyrou should be on that second line once again.
Right.
Get it back down there with Braden Shen. Again, not a statement on him not working with that top line. They were great, but you need more than one line for this team to be what it needs to be offensively.
Correct.
I would put Bolduc back up there. I understand the case for Jake Neighbors. Personally, I would lean Bolduc. I think he's been really good with that group. I think they need a more natural shooter on that line. He fits that criteria. I think Neighbors makes a lot of sense with that second line with Shin and Kyrou. I understand he does not have the speed that Kyrou wants to play with, and you'd like to have somebody else that can play up on the rush with him. It is what it is. I think Neighbors has more skill than we've given him credit for, certainly for myself, than I have given him credit for. And then that leaves Jimmy Snuggerud on that third line. I don't love doing it. I don't think you get the best out of Jimmy Snuggerud if he's playing with Oscar Sundqvist and probably Matthew Joseph. it kind of puts him out there on an island, but I don't see a better way to utilize these guys right now. So it becomes a lot easier if Dylan Holloway's in there. I could put him on the second line, and now Neighbors goes down with Snuggerud and Sonny. That line makes a lot more sense, but you can't do that.
Can I add, you mentioned, the imbalance now between the time on ice at these lines because everything's been thrown out of whack, and there's really no third line that they kind of trust. Can they do that with potentially one or two rookies in the lineup? Like, that's part of the discussion.
You can't do it
now.
with two. If you're going this path, you have to have Joseph or Texier in the lineup until Holloway returns.
And even with Snuggerud, like, I think he's been fine. I think he's looked responsible on his own end. I also know he's a rookie. And I also know that at some point he might be the guy that starts to get picked on by other teams. And if that's the case, like, I just don't know if they can get back to that imbalance now that they are down to Snuggerud being in this lineup.
I think you can do it with Snuggerud on the third line. And I know you're right, PK. Like, that's not where you want to play him. But Bolduc, although he has been really good in this Four Nations break, even when he wasn't performing well, Jim Montgomery said, like, Bolduc does everything right away from the puck. And I could argue Snuggerud's done that as well. I haven't seen things that Snuggerud's done away from the puck that I'm like, ooh, he can't be in that position. You put him with a Sundqvist and a Joseph. Is it ideal? Absolutely not. But Sundqvist is one of their best responsible centermen. And Joseph, if he plays physical, you've got your sharpshooter. Just get him the puck.
His problem is not away from the puck. Joseph's problem is with the puck.
Exactly. Well, and it's in the defensive zone, which,
Correct.
I mean, you might have to be babying him like you were with Dvorsky. But why I would go Bolduc instead of Neighbors on that line with Shen and Kyrou is you've got to put speed with them. And if you look at Bolduc also plays with the physicality that Dylan Holloway played with. Like, Holloway was so good at puck separation on top of the speed through the neutral zone. And Holloway on the season has 165 hits. Zach Bolduc's got 106. Are they the same player? Absolutely not. But Bolduc has the ability to shoot off the rush. Bolduc will play physical, and Bolduc is fast. That's why I would go back to that and then just go back to the top line that was working for you. I mean, in that 12-game win streak on top of the few losses, like, Jake Neighbors was contributing offensively with Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich. It is not the same, and you're never going to have the same. But structurally, if you want to have the line combinations that you can roll 3-4 lines, I think I would go back to putting Neighbors with Thomas and Buchnevich. Somebody's got to become a shooter on that line, though. I would go with Bolduc and Shen and Kyrou so that you can hopefully try and replicate some of that speed. And I would have Snuggerud with Joseph and Oscar Sundqvist.
It's not an easy spot to be in with 2 games to go. Hopefully Dylan Holloway's fine. They get a miraculous word that he's going to be ready to go for the first round
Miracles
of the playoffs.
have happened all season this year. Remember Broberg? Thomas?
Remember McDavid?
Yeah, Parayko?
Because if he comes back, everything becomes super easy. With him out of the lineup, it's a little more difficult to be able to configure exactly what you want for these lineups. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Who are you rooting for tonight, Alex? A big game in the NHL. It's the Minnesota Wild against the Calgary Flames. If the Wild win in regulation, right, it effectively ends all of this.
Yeah.
Like, the Wild are in, the Blues are in, Calgary's out. What are you rooting for tonight?
I'm rooting for Minnesota to win it. As much as I would like to see Vegas instead of Winnipeg in the first round, I really don't care anymore. Just get into the playoffs. Because if Minnesota wins, essentially what would happen is they're at 95 points with 2 games to play. You have 2 games as well. You'd have to get to 96, and Minnesota would have to stay at 95 for you to get that top wild card spot. So essentially, the hopes of you getting into the top spot to play Vegas, pretty much dead.
Yep.
Because Minnesota also plays Vancouver and Anaheim down the stretch. So, like, I think you can write that one off. I would much rather, though, on Saturday be going into the game saying, look, we need 1 point or we need 2 points, and whether it's regulation, overtime, or a shootout, you get it, you're done. You could focus on rest for Tuesday. I don't care about the first place spot anymore. Get the game done on Saturday. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, you can get some of your banged up dudes some rest so that you've got a week off to practice and focus on game 1 of the playoffs.
I think that's where I lean as well. Just at this point, it's more about the Blues than it is their opponent. We've seen them beat the best teams in the NHL during this winning streak. You've got the capability. Like, Colorado's a team that everybody's afraid of. You've beat them multiple times during your winning streak. If you are playing at the top of your game and if you're healthy, you're fine at getting through whoever it is that you need to get through. The problem is what they've been playing lately. And you just get in. Just get in.
Rest is so much more important, and making sure that structurally you're ready to go than the opposite of this, to where Tuesday's game matters. Because if Tuesday's game matters, it matters also. You're going to have to be waiting until Thursday to find out what happens. And you don't want to be in a position for this. I would love come Tuesday to see Oscar Sundquist get some rest, to see Braden Shen get some rest, to see Ryan Suter get some rest. Like, give those guys the option to have their bodies at 100% for the playoffs. Get a couple of more reps for guys like Dvorsky and Snuggerud to gain some confidence, and then get 4 days straight where Holloway, Parayko, and all of these guys can rest their bodies up and focus and practice on how to tighten up for the Jets.
The Blues versus the Kraken tomorrow night. Pre-game coverage with Alex begins tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Puck drop tomorrow at 9 right here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. Coming up next, we'll hit the rewind and finish this thing off here on BK and Ferrario.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios, this is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. ENB Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Alex and T1 on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys missed anything from today's show or this week's shows, go ahead and check it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com or the free 101 ESPN app is where you can go to find it. That is sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
The 101 ESPN app, super easy to use. It is also free to download, and you can find that over in your app store. It is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Alex, the Cardinals back in action this evening. They are taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. My assumption is that the Fastlane will be playing the lineup game, so if you want to play that along with them, go ahead and take that sound down here for the next 30 seconds or so. The Cardinals have made a change to the lineup. It is going to be Jordan Walker batting second in the lineup tonight, going up against right-handed pitcher Aaron Nola. I like the move. I understand the move. T-Bone would have preferred that it was Mason Wynn. Get that as well. The big thing here, they made the change. They sat... They're sitting Wilson Contreras tonight in a game against Aaron Nola, probably get him back in there tomorrow against the lefty. Do you like the decision, and how do you think it's going to play out?
I like the decision, but I like more that we're seeing this Cardinals team be very aggressive early on. Roycroft's not with the team anymore. Contreras is a healthy scratch. Healthy scratch. Look at me talking like a hockey player. And you're also giving guys the opportunity down the stretch. You know, we're talking about the potential of Michael Ciani being an option down when Nolan Gorman comes up. You can fault the Cardinals for a lot, but you can't fault them this season for doing the right things for the best of the future, which is what they told us at the beginning of the season. So hopefully, fingers crossed, guys, that the new regimen is going to stop lying to Cardinals.
I also like that Thomas Ajayce's getting the start tonight. My guess is he'll also be out there tomorrow against the left-handed pitcher. I'll be curious to see what that lineup looks like against a lefty and what kind of options they have coming off the bench. If Gorman is back, you might go with like a Lucan Baker, a DH, and then you could bring Gorman in late. So JC at second, you could bring Donovan in late. And then at Pawhace, that's catcher potentially, you could use Burleson, and then you go to your backup catcher there later on. You've got a lot of flexibility with this lineup right now. T-Bone, what stood out to you about the lineup? And again, what do you think it's going to look like this weekend against the Phillies?
Well, I'm not going to give them their flowers just yet for their aggressiveness, because I think it's one thing to sit Contreras today. We've seen them do this before, the 48-hour kind of reset for players. It's another if he's hitting in the two spot tomorrow, because that's my expectation. My expectation is Wilson Contreras will return to the lineup tomorrow and be hitting in the two hole against Christopher Sanchez. I don't mind going with Walker. I just find the timing just a little off because the fact that he kind of struggled on that road trip. Meanwhile, Mason Wynn really turned it on, had an OPS around 900. I would think you'd want to go with the hotter bat, but I get it. Aaron Nola probably profiles better for Jordan Walker, so I don't mind it. I think in this series, it's just going to come down to what's their bullpen look like, because their bullpen is really going to be tested in this one. They've got to win tonight. If they don't win tonight, they are losing 2 of 3, because they can't count on Miles Michaelis to give them a good start over the weekend. It's going to be can Palante and can Liberatore on Sunday get you to your big 3 arms, get you to Maton, get you to Kyle Leahy, and get you to Ryan Helsley. If they do, then you're going to win 2 of 3 against the Philadelphia Phillies.
I think if you don't win this one, you don't win any of them.
Potentially. You are at a disadvantage when it comes to the pitching matchups in this one. Palante versus Nola, Michaelis versus Sanchez, Liberatore versus Wheeler. Things are certainly... let's just say this. The Phillies will be heavily favored in all 3 of these games. You do have a lefty on Sunday. That helps going up against their big bats. You have Palante, who profiles more as a lefty specialist, going up against, again, most of their big left-handed bats tonight. So while you are at a disadvantage in terms of the matchups, it's not the worst thing in the world, except for tomorrow when you have Michaelis on the mound.
And I might be a little off on this, but I think how Michaelis does this weekend determines if they stick with a 6-man. Because I was looking at this when we were having that conversation today. The Cardinals are getting the 6th fewest innings from their starters so far in baseball. Now, most teams have played about where they are, 12 to 13 games. There's one or two that have played 14, 15, but they are 6th fewest right now in innings from their starting pitching. And if Michaelis gets roughed up, they're going to have to burn Steven Matz out of their bullpen rather than be able to use him in the rotation to go for a 6-man.
Tomorrow, the Blues are back in action. They're playing against the Seattle Kraken. Alex, we do not know as of right now if Colton Parayko will be able to make his return for that game or not. My guess is probably not. You probably have him play in that final game of the regular season against Utah next Tuesday. But either way, what's the number one thing you're looking for in this one against Seattle tomorrow?
The net front presence. I'm looking to see if you can get back to the style of hockey that you were playing. You know, the schedule has been brutal. I get that there's fatigue for this team, but you've got 2 more to start at least righting the ship. And I think the net front presence on their own end is going to be an issue that might lay there until Colton Parayko comes back. But can you establish the own net front presence? And what do the lines look like? Does Dvorsky stay in? Do they put Joseph back in? I'm kind of with you. I'm like 60-40 leaning that Parayko doesn't play versus playing. But I think more than anything, you're watching what happens tonight, because if Calgary doesn't get a win, the Blues legitimately can clinch that playoff spot, and I think that's going to be a breath of fresh air for them if they can tomorrow against Seattle.
Your leaderboard at the Masters. We are early on day 2 of the Masters. Justin Rose is your leader. He is at a 8 under. He had a 1 under today. Rory McIlroy is having an unbelievable day today. He's through 16. He is a 6 under, which is where he's at for the tournament. Wow, yeah. He is now tied
He's had 2
for
eagles
second.
Today.
Bryson DeChambeau is a -3 today. He's at a -6 for the tournament. Also tied for second. Corey Connors at a -6. Others on the leaderboard right now. Victor Hovland is a -5. You got Shane Lowry at a -5 right now. Scotty Scheffler is a 5 under as well. Jason Day is at 4 under.
DeChambeau had the hit of the day so far. I've seen the highlights of it. He was in the sand trap. He chipped his way out of it, and it just rolled in for the birdie. So DeChambeau with the shot of the day. But yeah, McIlroy is probably going to win it.
We are through one. A few guys are getting pretty deep into their second day as well. Do you have a pick for the Masters?
I think it's
weekend?
McIlroy.
You think so?
Yeah, I think McIlroy. Even yesterday, he had a couple of shots that it was like, okay, dude, this guy's locked in. Now, the hardest part with the Masters is typically Saturday and Sunday. Sure. Once you get on those last 2 18s, but I think McIlroy is going to be the one that, if he doesn't win it, he's going to be in the top 3 the whole tournament.
Give me chalk. I'll go with Scotty Scheffler. He's tied for 5th right now, 5 under, 3 back of the leader with Justin Rose. I will go ahead and take Scotty Scheffler. T-Bone, you got a pick?
I'll go with Scheffler, too.
Big golf guy over there.
I heard TMA saying this morning that, he's in striking distance and he's hanging around. And, hey, I don't watch a lot of golf. I know if Scotty Scheffler's hanging around, he's going to make it interesting.
Yep. He'll find a way once we get to Sunday. All right. For Tanner Hendrickson and Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. Great job back in the studio for us today as well. We had Jordan Deacon, who had to go through some technical difficulties for us, and we sincerely appreciate all of her hard work back there. We will talk to you guys on Monday at 11 a.m. Enjoy the sports this weekend. The Fast Lane's coming up next year on 101 ESPN.